Hey, good morning, all you beautiful people. Hopefully, this will start working here. I've adjusted the audio levels for me and some of the people in here. So, can you please let us know if you guys can hear us? And we're going to do a quick audio check. I got Jim and I got Lawrence in here, but anybody's welcome to come in. The link is in the video description, but I have to know you. So, but anyways, Lawrence, can you say something real quick so I can make sure that the audio works just fine?
Hi, my name is Lawrence Yufa, and I'm the founder of Milwaukee Atheists, the greatest YouTube channel of all time.
Listen to that sexy voice. So let me know if you guys can hear his sexy voice. All good. Red Eye says all good, and I trust Red Eye.
Sweet.
Sweet. So let me give you. Well, you know what? Before we even start, I got something to show you guys. So let's. Thank you. His audio is perfect. I actually did an audio test before we went on, so I
And
very rarely do that.
check mine. Hopefully mine's okay still.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
All right. So I want to show you guys something. Do you know what you're looking at here? You guys you won't see it on the inside here, but the outside can see it. By the way, yeah, Jim, I guess you're covering that because of the way I have my desktop. But so what you're looking at here, this says this account has been terminated for violating YouTube's community guidelines. Does anyone want to guess whose this channel this is? It is a flat earther, and some of you guys probably have heard already. So whose channel is that? Play the guessing game. Anyone? What flat earther do you think got TOS? But no, it was not Jeranism. However, I would argue to be something to be said it's a bigger than Jeranism. Anyone want to take a guess? I'll give you a hint. His initials are ED, and it's not erectile dysfunction.
Hmm.
I'll give you a hint. His first name's Eric. I'll give you a bigger hint. He has 200 flat Earth things that arguments that he has for flat Earth.
Yep, got nothing.
Eric
Yeah,
Devay.
I'm not up.
Okay.
I'm not up to
Yeah.
date on my flat Earth channels.
Oh my goodness. Eric Devay is one of the biggest flat earthers out there. He actually was the one that came up with 200 arguments for flat earth that people kind of parrot. So yes, Kennard 1975 or 19, what is it? 1975 got it right. Yes. So anyways, that's not the first time he's lost his channel, but it's being talked about. I don't know the reasoning. I don't know why he got TOS, but one down, how many more to go? And again, I'm not advocating censoring people, but you know what? If they lose their channel when they're promoting that kind of bullshit, I really don't have any empathy for them, and I don't think most people do. You know what? And
What
by
do
the way, I
you
can't blow this up. There we go.
What do you think
Yeah.
he got taken down for?
I really have no idea.
I know, but what do you think?
Uh, Hate speech could be. I know YouTube is really cracking down on that. So, but yeah, I don't even want to speculate until I get more information on it. But I have validated it is no longer there. So, and people like my background. Yeah, thank you very much. But by the way, don't just ignore this one little folder right here. This is not donkey porn. I assure you. Okay, trust me on this one. You got to believe me. It is not donkey porn.
Does it
Sure it is.
stand for drunken peasants?
It is not donkey porn. Let's just go with that.
It might be double penetration.
Might be. Yeah, that's true.
Just saying, not donkey. Okay.
Because that's the important thing.
I'm putting some more. I'm going to put some more folders on here. Not midget porn, not midget mud wrestling or something. I don't know. I'll think of something. All right. Anyway, so you guys didn't come here for that. So let me get this started. So about a week ago, people have started asking me to kind of lay out my positions more concisely in a written format, and I think that was a really good idea. And I spent the last couple of days trying to do such a thing. Not an easy task. If you ever really try to put down your positions on paper, pen to paper, not as easy as it sounds. And so I have a work in progress. No, I no means comprehensive, no means complete, no means to be taken, as gospel. Just my ideas. Somebody said, by the way, Chat with Fish says chicks with dicks. No, I have a folder for that, by the way. So, yeah, everybody's got a folder for that, don't they?
I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah.
All of my folders are actually different races. Like there's like Arab and there's Chinese, and that's how I divvy it up.
That's racist. All porn stars are the same. Come on. Do you have them measured by size? 6 inches, 7 inches, 8 inches. Okay.
No, just races for some reason. Whenever I'm feeling a little festive, I go Latina.
You know what? I find all women are beautiful. I love Latinas. I love Asians. I love Arab.
I
I
mean,
love
yeah, obviously, but like
white,
sometimes
black. I love them all. I don't,
I,
but I can't have a preference to be honest with you. If I'd be really hard pressed to say which one
I don't really have a preference, but like at certain times, I probably do. But like overall,
my preference is anything but Jim.
when
oh, okay.
when I saw the title, when you sent me the invite, it said Steve McRae's actual positions. I had no idea that this is what we were talking about.
Yeah, hey, fooled you, right? Yeah. So missionary is always a good start. Work your way into doggy versus cowgirl. Um, but okay, so let's kind of dive into this. So I want to minimize this since
He said donkey. You heard that right? He said
I
donkey.
don't have. Yeah, okay. One video I have in there, donkey porn. No, actually, you know what? It's actually look at it. It's blank. So don't get all your.
Filmed in Tijuana.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you guys can't even see. Let me see how I'm gonna do this. Do I want to go speaker view? Yeah, I guess we'll go speaker view. No, I guess I'll go gallery view. And if I minimize that, yeah. Why is it fixated on Jim? I'm talking and it shows Jim.
It's just what the people want, Steve.
Here clearly, a gallery view, speaker view. This is weird. I'm not even kidding. I minimize it, and all it shows is Jim.
I'm never
I
leaving.
mean,
That's weird. I see everybody.
no,
Um,
you're not looking at the outside video.
I am.
Oh wait, now you're talking. But okay, why doesn't it show me when I talk?
Oh, I have no idea.
Well, that's bizarre. Well, I guess the other way to do it would be something along the lines of this. There we go. Does that work? That way we can all get shown here. All right, so we're going to start here. So I have gotten here. Let me move it over here. Blah, blah, blah. You guys are going to have to watch the outside chat for this, I think. Right? Because I won't be able to show it internally.
got it.
Like, I don't know. I guess I can screen share. Would that work? Oh, wait. How's that?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Hey, Zoom is pretty nifty, man. I got to tell you. I'm a big fan of Zoom.
I'm liking it more and more the more I use it.
Yeah, and you can actually stream straight from it too. You don't need OBS or XSplit. You can stream right from
Right.
it. How cool is
It's
that, right?
OBS tool or whatever.
Totally.
I've seen cooler.
Well,
Whatever,
I think
Lauren.
it's cool. I got to get back to the live chat so I can pay attention to that too. All right, next slide. So, again, this is called Steve. This is my 3 a.m. philosophy. If you guys don't know, I have a blog, 3 a.m. philosophy, that I write literally pretty much at 3 o'clock in the morning. Not to be construed as anything authoritative. Who's messaging me? Go away. I have no idea who's messaging me. I'm just kidding. Okay, yeah, I might have a hangout later. Whoever just asked me that. Okay, so as you guys may know, Yes has been a big flap out. Matt Dillahunty blocking me. He's gone on 3 shows already to mention it for some whatever reason. I have a blog on that. I actually wrote a response. Several hundred people have already read it. Very little feedback on it. I'm actually surprised. And what feedback I've gotten has been overwhelmingly positive. I appreciate that. But if you want to go check out the situation that actually transpired with the facts that I believe Matt left out, the material facts, go to my blog, www.greatdebatecommunity.com, and it's under my my response in regards to the Matt situation. Now, again, I really have no interest to really talk to Matt about it. If he wants to, that's fine. However, when I don't really care one another. Now, he says that I would, or he would, next year. If that happens, great. If not, whatever. And I don't really care if he even reads that blog. That blog is more for other people. Okay, so this is my actual positions, and this is to help with straw man abatement, because I took a poll on Twitter and found out basically I think I'm the most straw man person around, with the exception maybe of the straw man in The Wizard of Oz. I just am amazed how many people assume my positions and how many people say things about my position that are just demonstrably not true, and say things like, Matt has said that I go around telling people that if they don't hold to philosophical definitions of atheism, they're not an actual atheist. That's absurd. Nobody's ever has heard me say that in any video, comment, tweet, anything. I've never said anything of the sort. So I've kind of put this down so as you guys hear people talking about this, I'm not asking you at all to defend my positions or argue for them, unless you actually believe them. But just to say, I don't think that maybe is Steve's position. Give them the link, or have them contact me. Right? I mean, I'm not spending my time arguing against strawmans, and I ignored people. A handful of people that make videos and talk about me, I've ignored them completely because all they've done for years is strawman me, and I have no interest in that. So, all right. So you guys ready to be in, Jim and Lawrence?
Yeah.
All right. So, in order to attempt to avoid being strawman less frequently, I have endeavored to make a comprehensive list of my actual positions, which people can reference if they so desire, rather than assuming them and arguing against a strawman. I need to actually reword that, huh? And I have this on the fly. So, in order to at least attempt to avoid being strawman, or at least less frequently. There we go. Okay, so I can do this on the fly. It's really cool. I love my hosting site. These are not to be considered immalleable, unopened to change, or in any way complete, and may be revised at any time. And I do believe in revision. And look at, I read something the other day that somebody said something along the lines of, if you don't change your mind at least once a year, you can't really consider yourself a critical thinker. Now, I don't know if once a year is appropriate, but if you don't change your mind every so often, I don't see how anybody can be a critical thinker. You have to be able to change your mind. I've changed my mind on numerous things. I no longer use the term for myself theological cognitivist. I've worked through that. That was like 5 years ago or whatever. And I changed my position on prisons. I do think now that private prisons probably not a good idea. And the reason I changed my position was because people argued their case, and they argued it effectively. So anytime somebody argues something effectively, people can be persuaded. That is the burden of persuasion somebody has. Right.
Yeah, I recently changed my position on something that was big.
You went from missionary to reverse cowgirl?
Yes, that too.
Mm-hmm.
No, I went over the past few months. I've went from just from mythicist to historicist. Obviously, in the middle there, I wasn't sure.
That is a pretty big change. Now, I am. People know I'm not a mythicist. I don't have a dog in that fight. And by the way, these positions are not my philosophical positions as a whole. I don't put down whether I'm a realist or idealist or my meta ethics. This is not for any of that. I might include those later on, but that would take me forever. But yeah, that's a huge change. Actually, I'm actually impressed. Like I said, I have no dog in that fight. I just think it's.
Yeah, it was actually from talking to Jim and Chris, because they were able to have a more convincing argument. They're more convincing arguments than Bart Ehrman, which I found funny.
So all three of you now are not mythicists.
Right, yeah.
Wow.
And my journey was about 2 years ago. About 2 years ago, I went from the mythicist to a historicist position, and that was a huge change for me because I was so staunchly a mythicist. It wasn't even funny.
That is a major change. Now, have you guys talked to Richard on that particular topic?
No, I haven't.
I probably could. I mean, I'm friends with the guy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like. I know people have their issues with Richard, but I still like Richard.
I like Richard a lot.
I respect him what he does. I think he's a good friend. So
yeah,
I think he's a great guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I talk to him on Facebook quite often. We'll just shoot the shit and stuff. But yeah, no, he's a great guy. I don't. And this goes actually to my positions. You'll see later about people having personal things with people. I just don't get any of that. All right, so let's dive into this. Now, obviously the biggest concern is people have with this whole bullshit about atheism and definition. So I have to make this very clear, and please let me know what you think, guys. I say the word atheist can have multiple meanings and refer to different things. In the most widest possible interpretation, it means someone who does not believe that there is a God. In a more stricter sense, used found in philosophy and in academic literature, it means someone who believes that theism is false, or the ontological equivalent of there is no gods. Now, I'm watching the live chat. If you guys have an issue with any of this stuff, just let me know. I'll try to address it. I don't want to get in a long discussion about it. This is more to suss out my position rather than to actually defend any of them, but I will try to do what I can. But does anybody really see an issue with that? Is that really that contentious?
No, I don't believe so.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So, personally, I hold to a stricter definition as a standard. And by the way, I try to use references. Cambridge 2013 says it's the standard. and how it ought to be understood when reading most philosophical papers, unless, of course, otherwise noted by author. Again, this is consistent with Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, written by Dr. Paul Draper. Any contention?
No contention here.
All right. I've never said that if anyone does not hold to stricter definitions that they are not atheist. That's a big one, too. I do challenge anybody to go out there and I've had a few people accuse me of that. Yet when I've asked them for evidence of it, and I'm sure many of you witnessed of this, not a single one has ever provided any evidence. And when they have provided what they think is evidence, it doesn't ever all say what they think it says, which is actually comical. And I will take that. I'll actually post it on the Great Debate community because I find it funny. So,
Well, the thing is, I do think you did it to me once, but not in like you. It was you just calling me an agnostic. You were like, Lawrence is a good agnostic.
oh,
Like it's not that you,
I'll kid
it's
around all
not
the
that
time.
you were saying that I should use that label.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different thing. You're an atheist. Don't worry, man. You're an atheist. So I have always argued that people should be allowed to use any definition they prefer to label themselves. Again, you can pick any definition you want to label yourself. How you label yourself is your deal. Now, I will include in here, I forgot to include in here, that if you accept a certain definition, you need to accept the baggage that goes along with it. And I guess I'll add that in later. Giant Midget Motor says, Steve, I think there's a difference between changing your mind and having your mind change. You should clarify. Even mind of God changes his mind constantly, but in his own accord. Yeah, no, I mean, you have to have a good reason to change your mind. If you're changing your mind all the time, then you're just wishy-washy. All right, there's a big difference there. So you got to make sure that you're changing your mind with a reasonable cause to do so, right? You just can't be inflexible at the point where you're just never changing your mind. Use of preferred label is not transportable such that I do not use my preferred use of definition to assign a label to other people. I've never said to somebody who holds like to a weak atheist position that you're not an atheist. Now, if they've asked me my position, my position as far as how it would be usually understood in philosophy, then I'll say, well, in philosophy, you would be more considered to be agnostic, right? But I've never called somebody an agnostic who identifies as atheist. You know. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, basically, what you're arguing here, I mean, just to kind of really dumb it down, is that the way that you use the definition, you're not applying it to everybody, and that everybody who's using the definition that they want to use shouldn't be applying it to everybody else. I mean, that's just basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I've actually heard Matt Dillahunty say, words have usages. I agree. And he also said that people should have a right to label themselves, which they want. I agree. And he actually has argued against me saying Steve should not be telling people how to label themselves, kind of thing. And yet my argument is, no, they're doing that to me. He has it completely in reverse. People are telling me that I'm atheist when I'm not, right? They're telling me they're using their colloquial definitions to apply to me. And my argument is, don't do that. I do not do that to them. And so their argument is sound. It's just backwards, right? It's just that I'm using their argument and they're using the same argument, but I think it's projection or something, right?
Exactly. You both have a very sound argument going from both ways, but the only difference is that you aren't trying to apply a blanket definition to everybody else's label.
Yeah, but they are.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. The only difference.
Okay. Iron Charter said, Seth, Steve Andrews says, if you don't know if there's a God, you're an atheist. Well, Seth's wrong. I mean, what do you want me to tell you? I mean, that doesn't make sense on multiple different levels, right? I mean, why would you have to know something to have a belief position? Atheism or theism is a belief position.
Hold on, that would make everybody an atheist.
Oh, you're an atheist. Yeah, well, I agree with that. I hold nobody knows if there's a God or not. I do believe that. Now,
well, yeah, but there are plenty of people that think that they know, but I don't think that they know. I think nobody knows also, yeah.
Yes.
What I find funny is that you hear people say, well, Aaron Ross says this, or Seth Andrews says this, or Christopher Hitchens says this, or whatever. It's like, well, that's fine. That is their usage of that definition, and some of them may use the same colloquial term and the same colloquial definition for that term. And but that still doesn't mean that you get to apply that label just because somebody from a position of authority uses it in a particular sense.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. But my only concern is, why don't they quote philosophers? I don't hear people quoting Hume or
That's true.
Kierkegaard or Descartes very often. I don't, unless you're a philosopher. I don't, and I especially don't hear people quoting Dr. Oppie, who we had on the other day. I don't hear him talk, quote Malpass. I don't hear him quote Malik. I don't hear him quote. Let's see, who else do I Draper,
Yeah.
Zabagetsky. I hate pronouncing Linda's. Dr. Linda Zabagetsky. I hate pronouncing her name. It's really hard. Brilliant papers, though. I love her papers on the Getty ear problems. But I don't see people referencing those, right? It's always Matt Dillahunty or Aaron Ra or Seth. Well, guess what? I disagree with those guys. Vehemently do I disagree with those guys. I think they're fundamentally wrong. I think they're from the Silverman school of pseudo philosophy, and I think that they have an agenda. That's it. And so they're more worried about having people identify as atheism for normativity, and then for being in line with how to read a philosophical paper, right? Because I guarantee this: if you use the definitions I use and you go read a paper on philosophy, it's more likely you'll understand the paper in context better. Like I just read the one the other day.
Well,
And
but
once I used the word agnostic like 10, 12 times. And it used it in a way that I'm familiar with. If you took that word to mean something relating to knowledge, the paper would have not made sense.
right. But I mean, the majority of the population, though, I mean, before Seth, before Aaron Robb, before Matt Dillahunty, they still use that term that's widely accepted today, or the definition for the term, atheist and agnostic, up until today. I mean, it's been familiarized. I mean, so wouldn't it be? I mean, and I understand that philosophically it means something different, but wouldn't it be? I mean, we can go one of two directions. We can force the majority of the population to accept the philosophical term, or we can find another label for the philosophical term. I mean, there's
Well, you
a
can't
few
force
different ways
anybody.
that we can go about it, but there's always going to be contention if we don't change the definitions or the labels.
You can't force anybody. I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's an argument to be had as which one is has more utility, right?
Sure.
But it also goes to your cause. Like genetically modified skeptic was one of the very few atheists that have ever given me a very cogent justificatory reasons for why he holds to colloquial definitions over philosophical. And his goal is to have normalization of atheism. I get that, but he has a way of explaining it that I thought was very profound. And not that not that I happen to think it was a stellar argument to change my position, but it wasn't a bad argument. Does that make sense? Right? It was justifiable for his case. If your goal is to have just atheism to be normalized, then obviously you would want to use a definition that would probably facilitate that goal, unless you recognize that definition might bring in issues, might have baggage. And I do maintain that the colloquial definition has baggage. So, but all right. So let's see the next one. I argue that if people accept a more broader definition, that they should not use a preferred broader definition to label me. That's it. Self-explanatory, nothing major there. All right, we got any questions live feed before we go to Gnosticism? Is anybody confused on my position of atheism now? Uh, this guy Robbie says, "What is the definition of an atheist, McRae?" I just explained. I
Jeez.
just went through this. Do I need to again? Not going to again. Go rewind. So, and I will get at the very end of this. I explain definitions, by the way. So we'll get that on this video as well, because I think people are really confused how they work. All right. So, 2, agnosticism is polysemous, and it can be referred to in a variety of different things. Okay. Most words are polysemous, but I think Gnosticism is especially in philosophy because it really can mean a lot of different things in many different contexts, right? 1, or A, agnosticism can mean Huxley's method or philosophy similar to evidentialism in the scientific method. Originally, agnosticism, as he used it, was a method of discourse, a method of scientific inquiry, very similar to a pre-type of evidentialism. There's a guy you guys may know from Twitter called the agnostic, militant agnostic. Are you familiar with him? I'm sure you ran into him before. He holds to that definition of agnosticism, which is completely fine. I've explained to him that I don't because, again, there's many different ways you can utilize these words. Just like the word realism in philosophy has no one specific meaning. It can refer to ontology, it can refer to morality, it can refer to a lot of different things. Same with relativism, objective, subjective. These words have different meanings depending on the context of discourse. Even natural has different meanings. If you're dealing with something like G.E. Moore's what is the good, then not natural or non-natural does not mean what you think it means. It does not mean something that is supernatural or not of a natural origin. Okay, so B. If it can mean that the belief that the knowledge of God's existence is unknowable. That's one of the most broadest interpretations. And when you see in a dictionary, a lot of times they give that one, right? It just means that somebody that holds to the position that the existence of God is unknowable. Now, I do hold to that position to some degree. I don't think anybody knows if God exists, but I don't maintain it the hard position such that it can't be known. And there's a distinction to be made there, right? I can say that I do not believe anybody on earth knows if God's exist or not. Now, again, I could be wrong on that. It's a belief. But I do not go as far, as hard, as they would say that it is impossible to know one way or the other. Jim, do you see the distinction there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, in the widest possible, see, again, these things give the most widest possible interpretation, meaning that if you want to take the most liberal approach to something, it would be a person who thinks that you cannot know one way or another. I don't believe that. But it's fine if somebody does. All right. It can mean suspending judgment on a proposition in relationship to Appie or Friedman. Jane Freeman is from New York State University. She wrote a couple papers on suspending judgment. Again, by the way, I have a citation page now on the Great Debate Community webpage. So hopefully, if you guys need a citation list, I'm working on that. And by the way, if anybody wants to be an editor for the Great Debate Community webpage, let me know. If you guys want to post stuff there, if you guys want to do blogs there, you're more than welcome to. I can make you an editor. It's getting traffic, by the way. I'm getting several hundred hits a day nowadays on that webpage, and it's not profited. I'm not making any dime off of it. But if somebody wants to have a blog page that's already getting traffic, I'm fine with that. I'll make you an editor if you're capable of writing post. And you don't have to agree with me, by the way. There'll be just something that is in line with something that's validatable, right? I'd rather have something that's factual than or opinion, at least opinion based, rather than completely not factual. All right. Okay. D. It can mean the psychological state of being agnostic on a proposition, as per Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Agnosticism, by the way, if you have an objection, let me know. E. Agnostic on the proposition of S does not believe P is true, nor believes P is false. Logically, agnostic is represented by not B P and not B not P. That also by Malpass. Oops, I spelled Malpass's name wrong. Sorry, Alex. Everybody knows who you are. I'll fix that. Okay. You have to trust me. It's updated on the actual webpage. So what that's basically saying is that, according to Stanford Encyclopedia, if you have any proposition and you just don't say it's true or false and you suspend judgment enough after evaluating it, that's considered to be agnostic on the proposition. Agreed? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay. And that's how I use it. It specifically says, again, that in modern times, agnostic is meant to refer to suspending judgment, basically, or not taking a position on the proposition.
Right.
Some people are confirming the logic. Thank you. By the way, I actually had somebody the other day. I wish Chris was here because Chris was engaging with him. But somebody actually told me the other day, just straight out, it is impossible to not have a position either way. As in far as not BP and not B, not P is logically impossible.
That's
No.
That's assuming that you don't hold to a true, false, and unsure model. I mean, if you,
No.
It just means you
some
don't.
people just
He's saying that you have to believe. Again, let's not confuse the ontology with the belief. Ontologically, God exists or God does not exist, right? But belief-wise, I can hold a position to neither. And in theory, I could hold a position of both. I mean, for example, if the proposition is a liar's paradox, I can actually say, well, I think the proposition is true and false. Yes, that violates LEM, but then you have to deal with first and second order logics. But if I want to have a cognitive, or if I have cognitive dissonance, so I have Moore's paradox, or if I have compartmentalization or whatever, there's reasons why beliefs are complicated. But still, you still don't have to believe one way or another, right?
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I'm sure the dude was probably mixing it up with you either believe something or don't believe it,
No,
which in
no,
classic no.
no.
Okay.
He actually put this logic and said that this logic is flawed because if you don't believe it's true, that means you believe it's false. And I was like, no,
No.
that is
Yeah.
not true. And Chris
I,
Hansen
I was
told him
trying to
that
be
too.
pretty liberal about it,
Yeah.
but okay.
No, I'm glad you tried to steal man. I tried to do as well, obviously. But nope. And this guy's been like, a thorn for like years, and I just haven't blocked. He just happens to be on a video, and I'm not addressing him any further. But yeah, I was like, this is not a level I can really go down to. G. I'm agnostic with respect to the proposition of theism, meaning that if theism is to be accepted as P equals at least one God exists, then I do not evaluate P as true nor evaluate P as false. Believe it or not, this is exactly the same as what people generally refer as weak atheism. And I have a logical proof for that as well, if anybody wants to go see that. It's on the Great Debate Community. It's not even contentious, I don't think. You guys are both strong atheists, though, right?
No, I'm a weak atheist, yeah.
You're weak. Okay. John. So Jim is a strong. So Jim holds the belief that there are no gods.
Right.
I mean, there's yeah. I mean, yeah, I am a weak atheist. When you talk about specific gods,
Oh yeah, that's fine.
but yeah.
And by the way, I'm just curious because I was talking about this with somebody earlier. Conviction means that, or convinced and conviction are two different things. If I'm convinced of a proposition is true, I believe it, but my conviction on it, my confidence level could vary, right? You could just be barely enough to believe, or I can be certain of it, or I can be anywhere in between, right?
Yeah.
So Jim, how would you say on the scale? Are you pretty damn well certain?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm as close to absolute as you can be without being absolute.
Okay. No, I gotcha. But Lawrence, you're not. You're not certain there's no gods, right?
Yeah, not at all.
Okay. And you're not even convinced that there's no gods. You have a position either. You don't say it's true or false, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So he takes the colloquial definitions and he assigns himself as an atheist, which would be a weak atheist, but still he takes the label atheist. I'm in the same position as Lawrence, right? We hold the exact same mindset here, philosophically speaking. The only difference is I adhere to the philosophical label, which would be agnostic. That's all.
Yeah.
Right. And philosophically, I would be considered an atheist.
Oh yeah. You would be like actually damn near a Gnostic atheist, if people want to say no.
Gnostic atheist, yeah.
I don't get that. I'm sorry. I don't really think that anybody has a justification to say they know one way or another. Now,
yeah, I think it's
hard.
You can say that they're not.
Think that it is a great way to categorize and to label. I honestly think it's a great system. Because I mean it does take out the whole agnostic side of things, but I feel like it's much more accurate. Like if somebody were to ask me and Lawrence, are you an atheist or a theist, and we would both say atheist, but you would have to ask follow-up questions in order to further clarify that.
Right.
But if I were to say that I'm a Gnostic atheist and Lawrence was to say that he is an agnostic atheist, then that makes a lot more sense and it's a lot more clarifying.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. And if people aren't sure, ask questions. And again, I've never condemned Lawrence or anybody else for taking the positions they have. I just think there's baggage goes along with it, and one day we ever talk about that we can. But I'm getting what I find to be the most absurd thing is that I'm getting the most amount of flack for having the same position as somebody else, just using a different label because that's how it is to be best understood in philosophy, and I get shit for that, and I get called a theist, I get called a Christian, I get called a closet theist. I don't understand that.
It's really amazing. Like when you or Chris get called Christians, it's just hysterical. Like I've been called a theologian at some points, and I'm like, thanks, I guess.
It's bizarre. It really is. A lot of rhetoric out there. Okay, so
think we're on H.
H. I argue that given agnostic from D and E, that with respect to any proposition, when I say that I'm agnostic on P, it makes no knowledge claim, nor does it refer to anything relating to knowledge. And I'll fix the format here. And what I mean by that is specifically that if I say I'm agnostic towards a proposition, it just means I have no position on either way. I don't say it's true. I don't say it's false. I suspend judgment on it. There's no knowledge involved in that, right? Because if you look at the predication of the logics here, that's belief, right? It's saying I do not believe P and I do not believe not P. There's no reference to knowledge there. So when I listen to Jacqueline Glenn go on the Rubin Report and she says things like agnosticism deals with knowledge, or I hear Matt Dillahunty or the Atheist Experience says agnosticism answers a different question. Where do they get that from?
Well, it's from the word Gnostic. That's where they get it from.
So that tells me a couple things. One, they've never read any of the literature. Two,
Sure.
that they commit the etymological fallacy. And three, they certainly don't understand agnosticism because the word gnosis, when Thomas Huxley coined the term agnosticism, was not to reference knowledge. It was to reference the, quote, illusion of knowledge. And this was actually confirmed by Robert Flint in 1903 in his book Agnosticism. So when they say things like that, clearly they have not looked at anything. What I think happens is they're parroting people like David Silverman. They're parroting people like Peter Boghossian and other well-known atheist activists. And it's one of those things called three tigers. What is it? Three tigers and a dragon, where if something is said often enough, it becomes a truism. And I think they've made it true because they've just repeated it so enough. But when I've asked people to go, get me a citation for that, guess what they do? Either one or two things. They block me or they give me the definition of, some Merriam-Webster definition of Gnosticism, which is, well, that means you don't know either way, or you don't know if gods exist or not, which is...
Well, the way I always used it was like, if we're using, the schema of like, that four different options like Gnostic theist, agnostic theist, agnostic atheist, Gnostic atheist, like under that schema, saying that Gnostic in that sense would mean to either have knowledge or think that you have knowledge, or like claim to have knowledge.
Claim to knowledge, yeah.
Yeah. It does make sense.
Yeah. And by the way, Nate's trying to get in. Nate, Brody, let me explain something. I've told you before, I'm never going to talk to you on this topic. You've had your chance over the last couple of years. I'm not interested. You're welcome to be in the live chat. You can say what you want. People can contest you. I really don't care. I will never personally talk to you about this topic because you've strawmanned me so often and so much and never gotten my positions right. Numerous people have told you this. Ozzy's told you this. I know for a fact many people have told you this. I'm not interested. Okay? So just stop trying to engage me on this. Your arguments have nothing to do with my positions, and I'm just not interested, okay? But I love you, man. I'm nothing personal. I think Nate's an awful great guy. He's going to be on Non Sequitur. I think hopefully to talk to Ken Hovind, I think. So this is nothing against Nate. It's just I'm never going to discuss with him on this particular topic, okay? So, but feel free to be in the live chat. Of course, you're free to put your positions out there. And by the way, I don't watch any of Nate's videos. I know he's made a lot of videos. I haven't watched a single one. Okay, so where are we at here? Okay, so F, I hold to how the term agnostic is used nowadays, as agnostic is a person who has entertained the proposition there is a God, but believes neither that is true nor is false. And that is also per Stanford Encyclopedia, right? And again, these are all validatable. If you go to the citation list, you can actually see where I get them from, but that is in Stanford Encyclopedia. It says verbatim the term is used nowadays for that, and that's how I use it. Now, if somebody doesn't want to use that, that's fine too. These are my positions, right? That's all. Okay. Nate loves me too. Yeah, no, like I said, and I do get into this later on. And this is, by the way, it wasn't directed to Nate when I wrote this, but I really hate people that don't be friends with people because of litmus test stuff. Just because Nate and I don't agree on this doesn't mean that we can't be friends, right? I think the world of him. I think that he is an awesome interlocutor on any other topic, and I really have utmost respect for him. I really do. And hopefully he feels the same way to me. But it's just this is not a topic that I can discuss with him. I've learned my lesson over the last couple of years and just not interested. But I really hate when people say, well, I can't be friends with you because you're a cisgender white male, or I can't be friends with you because you're a Republican or liberal or Democrat or whatever. I hate litmus test for friendships. I really do. Because we've all been through there, right? We've all had that happen to us.
Oh yeah, actually, kind of recently, I was on Bumble, and I matched with someone, and she asked me what I did on YouTube, and I was like, "Oh, I do stuff on history of religion." She asked me what my religion was, and I said I was an atheist, and then I got unmatched.
Yeah, no, I again, right? I don't get it. I really don't. I have a wide diversification of people that I know. Everything from the strongest atheist you can imagine, the strongest theist you can imagine, and everything in between. I can't base on who I hang out with or talk to or free friends with based upon their positions. That seems to be nonsensical to me. If I did, you wouldn't know anybody, right? I mean, I
Yeah, like
thrive on the
I
fact
have,
people disagree with me.
yeah, I have some good friends who are creationists, but I can talk to them, and we can have a discussion,
Hmm.
and it's civil.
Yeah,
So
absolutely,
it's,
right? I mean, I happen to get along with like S.A. Thomason, even though I think she's the worst Christian apologist I've ever seen in my entire life, right? But I'm not going to get along with Matt Powell, who I think is not only a horrible apologist, he's a horrible, horrible human being. So, all right, so let's move on here. Uh, all right, so does everybody you got up to date on my atheism and agnostic? I mean, does anything there does not sound reasonable, cogent, or by the way, from what you guys just listened to, Jim and Lawrence especially, do you not agree? And be honest again, this is not tribalism, but do you not agree people have straw man the shit out of me on these issues?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I see it all the time. Like somebody will just come in there, Steve's an atheist, just
I feel like part of that now is at least I'm not sure about how much of it, but I feel part of it is probably trolling because I've said it to troll Steve.
Oh no, I don't care about that. No, Seth does it to troll me too, right? Seth Andrews, the Thinking Atheist. I like the guy. We get along fine. I've interviewed him, right? I know he's dicking around with me, and I give him shit back. That's how it is. Matter of fact, when Matt was talking to him, Steph was like, oh, well, Steve's a really good friend, so like that because we just dick around with each other. I happen to really like Seth, so I don't mind when people do that kind of stuff. I think it's funny. I got a kick out of Seth's Steve, you're an atheist. I actually like
that was great.
that was brilliant. I mean, why would I not think that was funny?
That was brilliant.
Yeah, you know what? I've got voice envy. What it is. God, does he have not the best
Yeah,
voice?
yeah, his voice is just fucking orgasmic.
Oh
This
my
this
God.
next one is contentious on my part. I think this is the only part of it that I'm
All
that I'm
right, well, let's
still.
get in the next part. Um, Number three, and by the way, there was no rhyme or reason for the order of these things. I just was brain dumping. I had put it on Twitter the other day that I had a basically mental block, right? Writer's block. And it wasn't because I didn't know what to write about. It was because I had too much going on in my head, too much things I wanted to write about. I didn't know where to start. So, and I came to find out that actually is called writer's block because I was like, is there a word for the opposite of writer's block? And somebody had said, no, that is writer's block. Oh, interesting. I did not know that. Number three, I argue babies and rocks are not atheist nor theist. Babies are innocent, not atheist, as Hoppy. Now, again, I am not saying this prescriptively. Now, let me make this very clear because I've been accused of being a prescriptivist when it comes to this. These are my positions. They don't hold any prescriptive value on this, such that it is an absolute fact that babies are not atheist. I'm not going to make that as an ontological claim because I think it's a nonsensical claim. But I hold to myself that is absolutely absurd in every conceivable way to say that babies and rocks are atheist. Is that what you have an issue with, Jim? That me saying that, or because you have an issue with atheists saying that rocks are atheist?
No, that the people saying that babies and rocks are not atheist nor theist.
What do you think they are?
Well, they're not agnostic.
No, they're
I
not
mean,
agnostic. Yeah, I agree with that.
they I believe that innocence is atheist.
Okay.
I mean, because
So a
you,
rock is an
you
atheist.
because you don't believe in any gods presented to you or not. If there's no God presented to you, you do not hold a God belief.
Okay, so you would consider a rock to be an atheist.
Yes,
Okay. So if I
and a
asked you,
baby.
All right, and a baby. All right. So if I asked you how many atheists are there in the United States, you now have to include every rock, every atom, every quark, every house, every car, every monitor, because the statement is how many atheists. I'm not excluding. I'm not qualifying. I'm just saying how many atheists are there. And if you're going to include everything in that set, that makes it very complicated to me.
No,
It
not at
bloats your
all. 'Cause
ontology.
how many redheads are in the United States? You wouldn't count my cat.
All right, so you're going on the assumption that you're dealing just with people in that question.
Sure,
Okay, and when you do a census, are you not assuming people?
of course.
Okay, so I mean, I don't think you need really to qualify that you're talking about people there. No, I mean, I do take your point. Don't get me wrong, um, but I still think it bloats your ontology to include everything that is not having a God belief to be included
Well,
in
I mean,
atheism.
I don't label things. Like if I was like to write a book on geology, which I should never do, I wouldn't put something in there like oh this rock right here has some qualities. For example, it tastes salty. It's got a low scratch index or a low hardness index, and it's an atheist.
Yeah.
I mean that's just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
well, you would have to under your schema, you kind of would have to,
Well,
right?
no, I'm not trying to. I'm not applying a label to rocks as being atheist. But I mean, I think that putting babies and rocks in the same category for starters is ridiculous. I mean, babies I'm fine with labeling as atheists, but rocks not so much.
Okay. Lawrence, do you agree with Jim on that? Because I gotta tell you, I really honestly don't by any stretch of imagination.
I don't think I'm not sure if innocence would be the right term to put on it, but the thing is, rocks and babies don't have the cognitive ability to make that
Right.
distinction.
Right. I think that to have any kind of philosophical label, which atheism, regardless of what people think, I'm sorry, theism is a philosophical label, so is atheism. I don't know any way around that. But again, my positions. Uh, if you have a position, you have to have the ability to cognitively be aware of the proposition, evaluate the proposition, have executive decision making abilities, and some kind of ability to do so. Right. I mean, now granted, there's something called dispensational beliefs versus concurrent beliefs. And all that really means is, is something currently going on at the time? Do you have an active belief? If I say I believe that, such and such can run or is running is kind of two different things. And so is it something that's just a dispensational belief or something that's happening now? But people will argue, well, if you're in a coma, that doesn't mean you have any beliefs. No, the person still has the belief in a coma. It's just not active, right? So there's different ways of looking at beliefs. But humans have the ability to formulate beliefs. I do not believe a rock has the ability to formulate a belief one way or another, or make a decision one way or another, and they cannot decide on the proposition as true or false. And again, atheism is in philosophy is to be thought of as propositional more than psychological. That's just my position. But anyways, let's not get too bogged down in that. Um, and again, as you said, Lawrence, rocks and babies do not have executive higher functions nor decision making abilities and cannot hold philosophical positions. But I do, by the way, I do call people rock atheist if you look on Twitter, and a rock atheist is somebody who actually believes rocks are atheist. But I gotta tell you, Jim is a very high level functioning rock atheist. So.
Well, I obviously don't think that rocks have made a claim one way or the other. I obviously don't think that a rock can make a claim, but
Yeah, no, I mean, like for example, rocks are not moral or immoral, right? They're amoral,
yeah,
right? Babies are
absolutely.
amoral, or like for example, properly based beliefs. They're not rational or irrational.
But
They're
how are
irrational.
you putting
Go ahead.
rocks and babies in the same
Because
category?
because people have argued both. I've heard people say babies are atheists and rocks are atheists, and I'm like, no, they're just like they're amoral, right? They don't have any morality either, right? If you make the argument that um, if you don't have morals, you're immoral. Well,
I
a
don't
rock
know
is doesn't have
that,
morals.
that
But it's
babies
not
are.
immoral. They're amoral. If you're not rational, doesn't mean you're irrational. Excuse me. If you're not rational, it means irrational, right? That by I hate to say
No,
by definition, but
I would say that babies are moral because I mean morals aren't exactly universal, and as a baby grows, it develops their sense of morals. So what they start out with, I mean, they operate within their moral standards. I mean, so a baby doesn't know that something is bad. For example, when they smack you in the face, which happens all the time.
The moral, but see, there's a difference. So the moral agent, something can be a moral agent, but doesn't understand morality. But even still, you would agree that. How about rationality? If you're not rational, you're irrational. Would you agree with that? That's what it means. Irrational
Yeah,
means not be rational. Is a rock rational? No, but doesn't mean it's irrational. Right? That's why they have a term irrational, right? So if the definition is of irrationality is not being rational, then a rock is clearly irrational. But
I
wait
think
a
a rock
minute.
is rational. I mean,
You think a rock
a
is
rock.
rational? To be rational, you
Yeah.
have to have a cognitive thought
Well,
process, Jim.
well, I mean, you have to apply its standards of rationality, which there are none. So it's operating within its standards.
That makes no
It's. I mean,
sense. Yeah, I think you're digging here, man. But hang on, Nate Brody,
like
$5 super chat. I do give Steve shit, but I Patreon his channel, which he does. Thank you, and give to Nonsec, which he does. Thank you. I am a fan, and he is wrong, and most know the reasons why. Read SEP. It was just fine. Like I said, if anybody else wants to take Nate's arguments or whatever and try to give them to me in real time, I'm happy with that. I've not met a single philosophical person that agrees with him in any way, shape, or form. But if you know what, if you can find somebody that has some kind of background in philosophy, maybe they can explain it better. I don't know, but I'm willing to listen. But he's just for years got this stuff completely wrong, and I know that a number of people have got it explained to him, and it's just not worth it. But I love Nate, and he does support my channel, and God bless him. And I say that figuratively, not literally. People out there, Steve's a theist now. I'm not against using expressions like that. But anyways, you get the difference though about we wouldn't say that a rock is irrational. It just makes no sense. To be irrational, you have to have some kind of thought process. That's why we have words like amoral and irrational. It doesn't mean not, right? People say atheism means not theist. Well, no. Amoral doesn't mean not moral. Irrational doesn't mean not rational. Same
well,
principle. This is
because
why it's
yeah,
called the etymological fallacy.
because it doesn't have it doesn't have the fundamental necessities to even be categorized one way or the
Right.
other. So
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't be categorized.
Well, that's why, or even like, yeah, well, as I say, that's why we have theism and not theism, right? The actual dichotomy is if you're theist or if you're not theist. What atheists sometimes do is they take the Anthony Flew approach, which was 1972 presumption of atheism, and say, if you're not atheist, assume if you're not theist, you're an atheist because not theist equals atheist. The problem with that is all I think you're doing is creating what's called a disjunctive syllogism. And all you're doing is saying, instead of taking the actual dichotomy of true and not true, you're saying atheist, a theist or atheist, excuse me, it should be theist or not theist. And you change not theist to atheist, you now have theist or atheist, not theist, therefore atheist by elimination of the disjunct. Well, I could do that with anything. I can say theist or cat. You're not a theist, you're a cat. Logically sound. So what they're doing is not illogical, it's just a semantic word game.
Where would agnosticism fall in that dichotomy of theism and non-theism?
Non-theism.
It would fall in
Absolutely.
non-theism.
Anything. It's when you have a universal set. The universal set is consisting of a set and its complement set. Okay, so and these are just by set theory. They have to exist by set theory. So if you have theism, anything that's not in that set of theism, like for example, you, me, Lawrence, rocks, babies, corks, are not would be under the set of non-theists because non-theism is not a philosophical position. Non-theism is a category. That's why you don't go around saying I'm a non-theist. You can, don't get me wrong. I think it's useless, but non-theism is not really a philosophical position. It's just an extension of a because of a complement set to a set.
Is that the same thing as saying a non-believer?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. A non-believer, yeah, believer, you believe or non-believe.
Are rocks non-believers?
They would fall under a non. Yeah, they have no belief. Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
lack. I mean, sure, rocks lack a belief in God. There's no question about it. They were non-believers.
Right. Well,
Like,
I mean,
that's the problem with using colloquial definitions, though, because now you're stuck with them being atheists.
exactly, because whenever you like, if I were to walk into a church on Sunday morning and introduce myself, hi, I'm Jim Majors and I'm a non-believer, just atheist. That's exactly what would pop into their heads.
Well, and you might be right in colloquial terms, but nowadays I think it also could infer to people that it's nuns. Nuns are beginning pretty popular, and I'm a non-believer. Oh, you're a nun. So not necessarily an atheist, right? Depends on
Right.
on where you're at, and but you do get by set theory. you either fall into theism or not theism, right? And then if you combine theism and not theism, then you have the universal set of everything. Okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
What the actual pressing question of the day is: what flavor is Lawrence smoking? Penis flavor, I believe it is today.
I am actually smoking watermelon mint.
Ooh, that does sound good, actually.
It is.
All right, moving on here. So, number 4, I argue that atheism and theism are not a dichotomy, and that atheism does not fall into neither atheism or theism. A, agnosticism is not the middle ground between believing and not believing in classical logic. You believe or you don't believe. I do, however, argue that's not the best way to look at beliefs. I think that using fuzzy logic or dostastic logic or multi-valued logics, which I'm not that familiar with by any means, I don't know those types of logic very well. But I do know enough to know that those are definitely the better ways to explain beliefs, because beliefs are nuanced. And just by shoehorning them into you either believe or you don't believe, it loses a lot of granularity and a lot of nuance. That's why they have these other types of logics. They're there for a reason. Dostastic logic, which is the logic of beliefs, exists for a reason, right? Because beliefs are complicated. You can have what's called Moore's paradox, where you can say something like, it's raining, but I do not believe that it's raining. I predicate it as BP and B, not BP. It's a phenomenon. It's I don't know how ontological it really exists, but Moore makes a good argument that at least logically it's sound.
That's a really interesting argument,
Yeah.
because I've always thought that was illogical.
What?
Like to have knowledge of something but no belief.
Yeah,
Like
and that
it's raining, but I don't believe it's raining.
yeah, it's stating an ontological truism, I guess, and then you're just for some reason not believing that, and it's a semantic thing. The peculiar reasoner is a very strange position to hold, if it's even possible to hold. I don't know if it's possible to hold, but logically it is valid.
Wouldn't that validate an agnostic theist being possible?
No, I think it would validate having some kind of cognitive dissonance. I mean, I believe, okay, I don't believe that reality wise it is such a case where you have to believe or don't believe, because I think there are cases where we might have conflicting beliefs, which would be a contradiction, right? So in that case, we do believe and don't believe at the same time in the big picture. There could be a rational reason for thinking that. For example, liar's paradox. This statement is false. I can believe it's true and believe it's false, right? Now, am I holding those beliefs at the exact same time? Probably not. I don't know. I'm looking at it going, well, here I think it's false. Here I think it's true. I don't know, but it's confusing to say the least, right? And get a person on logic to explain it better, because I can't. I'm not going to try. Liar's paradox. Go talk to Malpass on that or something, because it's a hard.
Oh,
thing.
I got lost in Malpass till about 2:00 this morning.
Yeah. He's one of the very few guys I'll say is too smart for his own good.
Yeah, I fucking love Alex Malpass. That dude is so fucking smart. I tried to get him on for an interview. He wasn't really interested in it, but maybe I'll try to get him on for Atheist Sunday School.
Oh, I could. Yeah, I talk to Alex quite frequently. Usually it's 4:00 in the morning or something. He's getting out of the pub or something, and for some reason he'll hit me up. But no, Alex is a really great guy, but he is very brilliant. Okay, so a middle ground is not between believing and not believing, but between believing truism is false and believing theism is true. Now, I've heard Matt Dillahunty agree that that's a possible middle ground. Now, again, I don't know the video that what it was, but maybe somebody can find it. Just look up Matt Dillahunty and agnosticism. But in one of his videos, he had actually said that that he can at least see that it's possible there's a middle ground in that sense. I don't think he accepts it, but he doesn't by fiat dismiss it. And how I look at agnosticism is how Malik does in his paper defining atheism and the burden of proof, and Malpass views number 2 in the use of reason. What is atheism? The Canadian Atheist. By the way, if you haven't checked out Canadian Atheist, go check him out. I had a podcast with him the other day. I haven't listened to it yet. In fact, he hasn't linked it to. Did he link it to me? I don't remember. I haven't listened to it yet, Canadian Atheist. So send it to me again. He said, Steve, this makes my brain hurt as much as the atheist burden of proof. Cool discussion. Good. Look, I don't give a shit if people agree with me or not, as much as are they at least going to try to evaluate my argument? Does it make them think? If they think about it and they go, you know what, Steve has a good argument, but it's not persuasive, or they say, I don't think Steve's right, You thought about it at least, right? It's a hell of a lot better than being dismissed by fiat, which I get a lot, and it bugs the crap out of me. All right. Bob, New York. Hey, Bob, it's been a while. Why are you ignoring my question? I'm not Bob. What was his question? I'm sorry. Let me scroll back here. I don't want to ignore Bob. Bob's cool people. Hope he's not driving, though. Don't drive and text, Bob. What was Bob's question? Anybody can see it? Why do you believe that nobody can know that a God exists? I think it's a very high hill to justify knowledge in that regard. I'm not saying it's impossible, and there might be some people that can justify knowing. The problem I have with that is the condition in the analysis of knowledge that requires the proposition to be true. And I don't know what the truth maker you would use to say that P is true on the condition that gods do not exist. Right? Again, somebody might be able to be a very cogent argument that they know gods do not exist, and I might believe them. Doesn't mean I have to accept that gods don't exist, right? It just means that I think that they're justified for them to believe that they know, or they can claim that gods do not exist. But I've never heard anybody give me an argument for that. In fact, I've never even had. I ask people what their theories of knowledge is half the time, and half the people never answer me. I ask them what their theory of truth is. I prefer 99 probably percent of the time. I never get an answer. You guys ever notice that? Have you ever done that? Ask me what their preferred theory of knowledge is, or justification, or truth.
I mean, I kind of get that, because if someone, because everyone has their ways of figuring out what they're figuring out what they should be justified in believing in. Everyone has their own different methods, but not everybody has studied the terminology, so not everybody can put these labels to them. And I get that.
No, I get that, but here's the thing: if you want to claim knowledge, you need to present a really good argument, right? You need to know these things. You need to have a little bit of epistemology under your belt.
Fair enough, yeah.
Christy says, it's very difficult to have these conversations with average people. They just don't get it. I'm below average, so if I can figure out this shit, average people should be able to figure it out. So it's not that complicated stuff. But yeah, if you want to claim knowledge, you really need to know what theory of knowledge is. You really need to know about the justificatory conditions. Or else you're just not going to have a very convincing argument. Now, I admit that I will use some kind of framework to say, like, I know Bigfoot doesn't exist, right? Because I justify that because I know the hoax behind Bigfoot, right? I know the story of the guy and his son and the castings and all that stuff. So I have knowledge that is a hoax.
Well, the thing is, that argument can also be made for, like, flat earthers can also make that argument. They can be like, I know that the earth is flat because I know the hoax behind the round earth.
Well, and that's true, but I believe that the facts that I'm talking about have radicality. They comport with truth, right? In order to have truth, you have to. One way to look at truth is if you have a theory of correspondence, is that there's a fact that goes along with that truth, right? There's a corresponding ontological fact.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have none.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they do believe that they have that, though.
A lot of people believe they have knowledge when they don't, right?
Yeah.
But if you go, read some of the Getty Air cases about people that think they have knowledge when they really don't, it gets really complicated really fast. There's actually conditions that normally you have justified true belief. So you have the proposition is true. You have the subject believes the proposition or believes that P, which they believe they have knowledge, and it's justified to. But also you can have reliabilism, or you can have what's called a truth tracking condition, known often as sensitivity. I think the other one's called security, which I don't understand, but sensitivity I kind of get. But it gets into, actually, you're going to love this, when I'm going to mind blower. Sensitivity goes into how a person would believe the proposition if they were in a next closest possible world to us. Yeah. So you start dealing with modal ontology. Okay, so this stuff is not easy. I barely understand it myself. I'm just fascinated by it because I happen to like epistemology. But when people just throw these things out, they're like, I know this. No, you don't. Okay. All right, so moving on here. I know I'm blowing people's minds. Logically, I would hold that given P, at least one gods exist. And by the way, you guys okay with that general definition, right, for theism? You can word it any way. People are going to say God exists. I don't care. I'm not a stickler for propositional accuracy like a logician would. To me, if you just say God exists is a proposition. I don't even care if you say God or not God, like Matt Slick does. Granted, those are not propositions, but I'm willing to let that slide. But those are not propositions. You can't say be or not be, God or not God. Those aren't propositions. But you guys okay with that? At least when God exists, just curious.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so this is the logic. People have asked me, what do these symbols mean? They're not complicated, and most of them can be inferred, right? BP just means that I believe the proposition. That's it. B not P. I believe the negation of the proposition. So if I believe P is true, I believe P is not true. And if something's not true, it's false. Agnosticism is I don't believe either. So I don't believe the proposition is true. I don't believe the proposition is false. Which, how anybody can say that's not logical, I don't get. I have I will use Dillahunty's gumballs thing. I have the gumball machine in front of me. Lawrence, the proposition is, it's the number of gumballs even. Do you believe it's true or false?
Yeah, I'm aware of this. I don't know. I know that it's either even or odd,
Mhm.
but I don't believe that it's even, and I don't believe that it's odd.
You're
'Cause I
agnostic.
don't have
So
the
you agree? You're
information.
agnostic on that proposition of the
Yeah.
evenness of the situation. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly what agnostic means. It means you don't have a position either way. Now, would you agree though? In that situation, none of that deals with knowledge. You're not asked if you know one way or another. Just asking you if you believe one way or another, and you say no, I don't believe one way or another. I am
Yeah.
agnostic on that proposition. So when
Look,
people,
yeah,
yeah,
and if you really want to simplify it down to a dichotomy, either you believe that it's even or you don't believe that it's even, and entailing that you don't believe it also, it does not necessarily mean that you think that it's odd.
correct, absolutely right. Matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up because somebody again argued with me. If you don't believe it's true, you believe it's false. No, no, that's not true. Now I
Yeah.
will say this because again, somebody got this really hosed. If you believe that it is even, that entails you do not believe that it's odd, right? So,
Yes.
but the converse doesn't hold true. If I don't believe that they're even, it does not mean that I do believe that they're odd. So people have to be aware of that. And I get straw man all the time. Well, Steven, Steven, who calls me Steven? Steve, you're saying that atheists, if they don't believe in God, that means that they have a belief God doesn't exist. I'm like, how does that even make sense to you that I'm arguing that?
Hey, Steve, I think I'm co-hosting with you tonight, aren't I?
Are you? Are you really? With
Yeah.
Sargon? No, it's Sargon and no, who is it tonight? And Sargon and
I
Christine Witters.
I don't
Winters.
know. Kyle just asked if I would do the 28th and 29th.
Oh, that would be awesome. Oh yeah, big show tonight. But that's at 1 o'clock my time, so it's in 4 hours from now.
Okay.
3 hours from now. Sorry. Yeah, 3 hours.
3 hours from
Early show today. Oh yeah, today's gonna be a huge event, and I happen to like both of them. Again, I don't play this little game. Oh well, such and such is this and that. I happen to get along with Sargon. Now, granted, I don't agree with him on everything. He's very personal to me. I know people that know him that say he is personal. He's not personable. He's one way. He's another way. Fine, but he's civil to me, and I'm going to respect him in that regard.
Yeah. When I met him about a year or so ago, he was a really nice guy to me. It was cool to hang out with him.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine.
Really, really chill dude.
Uh, who wants to? Chris said it's not open hangout. It depends. I mean, I have a link if people want to join, but it depends who it is, and I gotta know who it is. But I'm not against people joining here soon. That's why I put the link in the video description. All right, so moving on here. And then, of course, not believing is weak atheism. Now, again, I have a proof out there. You can go see it on the Great Debate community that this right here is logically equivalent to this. If and only if you do not believe that the proposition is true. No, wait. If and only if you don't believe the proposition is. I'm trying now. I got to figure in my head. I don't believe the proposition is true. If and only if you don't believe the proposition is false. Because if you believe the proposition is false, you clearly don't believe it's true. Okay. See, I hold that by mirroring, this is where people really get confused. I hold that by mirroring, if the proposition is then changed to be not framed within the context of theism, but be framed within the context of atheism, there does not exist at least one God, right? So, like Jim would say, that proposition is true, right?
Right.
Okay. So here, BP. Actually, you know what? I messed this up, didn't I? This is why I'm doing this. What should this be?
BP.
No, but it should be atheism, right? If you hold it to be true.
Oh, yes, atheism.
All right, so I just updated it. So one second.
Oh wow, how did I miss that? I
Yeah,
was
no,
there.
I'm telling you. This is why I go over this stuff, right? Um,
Yeah, it's atheism and then theism.
Yeah, let me update this real quick because that's gonna bug me. All right. Like I said, I'm doing this on the fly here. Isn't that great?
But I think your agnosticism and weak atheism would still be the same.
Okay, why is this not updating? I just updated it. Huh. This is weird.
Did you click edit post?
Edit post, update. Did I get that? Not the right section. Oh, I see what I did. I changed the wrong one. Brilliant, Steve. All right, I'm fixing it. Now let me refresh.
So I'm curious, on the site, why is soft tissue used more than solipsism?
I don't know. These are obviously keywords.
Sure, no, I got that.
Ignore the donkey porn one.
Soft tissue.
Shannon, I don't know how true empiricism got to be that looked up. I don't know.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, but these are actual people tags that people use. So
DNA.
people do go to the site. I know. All right, so let me.
Dinosaur blood.
Dinosaur blood.
It's like
God
a Jurassic
damn it.
Park monologue.
We had Dr. Prothero on last night talking about Mary Schweitzer's work. That was great.
Do you want a Bible history section on the site?
What do you mean?
Like a blog to talk about Bible history.
Oh, if you want to be on this site, you're more than welcome to. I've got all the space in the world.
Sounds fun.
I get it for free, so. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. No, it's not technically free. I do pay for it, but it's a nominal amount. So, was it like $20, $30 a year or something like that? It's nothing really of consequence. Okay, now let me try this. Okay.
Yeah.
No, did it update? No, why is this not updating? I don't get it.
Atheism.
I'm going to take it right off my main page then.
That's a very nice desktop, Steve. That's very organized.
I tried. Now, this was not my idea. I actually did steal it from somebody else. I just modified it for my own. Well,
Nice.
the background I got from somebody. So, but let's see. I'm not that creative.
I mean, it's genius.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool too.
I might just get a big old bookcase as my background and then just put like PDFs of books up there.
I guess my webpage is not updating right now because it's just not letting me update. Anyway, so you're gonna have to just go with your imagination here. This should be that if I believe this is true. Oh no, this is right. No, it did update. Okay, wow. So if I hold this to be true, then you would be an atheist, right? Clearly.
Yes.
If I reject it, if I say that proposition's false, then you would be a theist.
Right, because you're saying there does exist at least one God.
Correct. And of course, agnosticism, and then
Monotheist, polytheist, that covers all of it.
right. And agnostic would be, of course, you don't have position either way. But here, because you're mirroring, now this I do not believe P would be weak theism rather than weak atheism.
Ah, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And I have a logical proof again that weak atheism logically is the same as agnosticism, is logically the same as weak theism. They're all equivalent because, as Dr. Malik and Opie, I believe, argued, and even say, atheism is no more closer to theism than it is atheism. It's no more closer either way. And so when people say that agnostics are atheists, there's a huge problem with that because in reality, in philosophy, no, it's there. You can just as much take the label to be theist as you can atheist, depending on how the proposition's framed. this is one of the main reasons I have an issue with I think the approach that atheists take, because I find it a little bit, I hate to use the word duplicitous, but it is a little dishonest because they don't tell people that you can mirror it this way, and you have to allow a theist to do this, or you're special pleading, which I do argue.
Within agnosticism, with agnosticism being a non-belief, would you is there such thing as weak agnosticism and strong agnosticism?
Yes. Yeah, a hard agnostic would be somebody who says, I believe that knowledge of God is unattainable or unknowable either way.
Okay.
I generally call that Huxleyan agnosticism. I've heard it referred to as Huxley agnosticism because that's what Huxley would have argued. I hold to what's called soft atheism or weak atheism. Soft agnosticism or weak agnosticism. Again, Malik has a paper on this. He says the same thing. That soft agnosticism would be that one does not take a position ontologically on the position of ontological consideration for God's existence, but you can hold that just right now nobody knows. That's called to be a temporal agnostic, or sometimes it's referred to as a zero data agnostic. Lawrence would be considered to be like a zero data agnostic probably, because he's probably would say that there's no evidence to evaluate if God exists or not of any empirical nature. I do think there's evidence to be evaluated. I just don't see much empirical evidence. Does that make sense?
But what about those who?
I don't think there's any good evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. What about those who are local atheists but still considered agnostics philosophically?
Well, here's the problem. When we're talking about the agnostic with respect to the proposition, you got to stay within the same proposition. You can't be changing it around, right? So the proposition is at least one God exists. It's not at least one God exists in China, or not one God exists according to the Hindus. It is a global thing, right? So you can't switch back and forth. If you're agnostic on a proposition, NEP, you can have any proposition for it, right? So I could be agnostic on the proposition of aliens. I could be agnostic on the proposition of climate change. These are all different propositions. But I'm agnostic here with respect to theism.
Okay.
Brian G., I think arguments should be tailored to your audience. Not everyone argues academically or philosophical definitions. Yeah, I agree with that. Sure. Yeah. But, and by the way, Brian, you're supposed to come in here, I thought. Could somebody give Brian the link? Hi, Flat Earth. Fight the Flat Earth, my friend. Bob. Hello, I'm hunting, not driving. Oh, great, he has a gun listening to this. Don't do that, Bob. If a God existed, he could give knowledge to someone so they would know that he existed. Yes, I agree with that. An all-powerful God certainly could, in theory, impart knowledge to you if, well, you know what, I'm going to revise that. I think logically it may be sound. I don't know how feasible it is ontologically, because we're finite beings, right? How do we ever have that kind of knowledge? It'd be very difficult. Now, perhaps it could be done, but that gets deeper than I want to go. Sarah slaps chat with fish. Hi, Sarah, my love. $20. Show Bob's and Vegana. Well, we have Bob in the live chat, and I think Vegana might be a vegetable.
Yeah, dude, you gotta show Bob and Vegana.
Bob and Vegana.
Yeah, I saw this great meme. It was because you guys know the band Rage Against the Machine, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there was this great edit. It was Bob's Against the Vagine.
Oh, is that what it is? Is that what she got it from? I don't know. Sarah, you're wonderful. Love you to death.
No, wait, hold on, Steve. Do you know where that whole meme comes from? Bob's and Vagine. Really? Oh my god. Okay, so it's like
I'm not against telling people. I have no idea what the hell they're talking about.
they're like, because there are a lot of thirsty Indian dudes who sneak into the messages of like random girls online, and they're always like, show Bob's, please open Bob's, show Vagine. And it just,
I've never experienced that before.
This
I'm sorry,
broken English, and it is so fucking funny. I suggest you look up some of this stuff.
I don't know if I want to. I already have a low opinion of humanity as it is, but anyways, thank you, Sarah,
it is beautiful.
You guys don't know Sarah. Sarah's one of my favorite people. She doesn't come around much though. She doesn't drop in like the Hangouts very often. You guys have never seen her in a Hangout. It's been a while. Brian G. $2. Whoops! Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you, Brian. And again, you're supposed to come in here, so somebody give Brian the link. Actually, the link is in the video description. What am I talking about?
So, Steve, I don't know if people hate you this much, or
They do.
if no, or or if it's just a bunch of sock accounts. But are you looking at your like to dislike ratio in this video?
I always get those on these types of videos. You know what? It's funny. I get accused of going around and downloading videos. What the fuck do I waste my time with that? I don't give a fuck. I don't go around just sitting there going, I'm gonna give you 100 downloads. Who the fuck has time for that? I want to know how would you even have 100 sock accounts? I don't get it, and I know how they bought it. So
I was just like, because I didn't like refresh the page in a while. So then I looked at it and I was like, holy shit, where did this come from?
What is it up to?
It's 32 likes and 94 dislikes.
Nice. That's awesome.
That's impressive, actually.
Impressive. Yeah. Hey, you know what? It helps it get on the.
It's good for analytics.
Good for analytics, yeah. And I'm okay with people thumbs down. And the funniest thing is, I'm sure those are. By the way, if it's a bot, it'll go away. YouTube does now remove them. But I guarantee it, because there's only 105 people watching. It's a bot. But those people that disagree generally don't leave comments, and when they do, they usually get eviscerated, because like that person who said that not BP and not B is illogical, he got torn up by numerous people, not just me. So 94 down, wow. Okay, so let's continue now. Let's get through this. I want to keep this to 2 hours. So you guys do agree that if you mirrored it, that would be considered weak theism, right?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of people, some people take umbrage with that, but then when they really think about it, like, shit, yeah, I guess, because that would be special pleading if you don't allow them to do that. Now, I wouldn't go around calling myself a weak theist, right? And I certainly wouldn't call myself a theist. That's one of the reasons why I don't call myself a weak atheist or call myself an atheist, because I am not. I think it's just as ridiculous, to me personally, opinion, to call oneself a weak atheist or an atheist as it is a weak theist or an atheist, when obviously the philosophical position of agnostic is no more near one than it is the other. But other people, I have no problem with it, right? Epistemically, they might have reasons. I don't fault Lawrence for howling to weak atheism, because he has epistemic reasons for doing so. I don't. This is why I don't hold up those labels. Does that make sense?
But doesn't this logic violate the dichotomy?
Which dichotomy?
The dichotomy of believer versus non-believer, or theist versus non-theist, with agnosticism being a non-theist on the non-theist side completely. Because I mean, if you start if the last one is weak theism, then that is the same as agnosticism.
Weak atheism, agnosticism, and weak theism are the same logical position.
But in order to be a weak theist, you would have to be a believer.
No, just because think about this. Think about this. In order to be for like a minute or two, accept atheism as the belief that God does not exist for this argument. Okay.
Okay.
It won't work without it. If that's the case, then Lawrence is a weak atheist. He does not meet that criteria, right?
Yeah,
that'd be true. Yeah.
But he still takes the label of atheist.
Correct.
Even though he doesn't make the conditions to be an atheist.
Right, but
Okay,
he is an atheist under the colloquially accepted.
Okay. But still, forget the colloquial definitions. We're talking about logic. He still doesn't meet the conditions to be an atheist, but he still accepts the label of atheism. Which, again, I'm not arguing whether that's right or wrong. I don't believe in right or wrong. I'm just saying that's what he's doing.
To simplify this, if I said that if the position of atheism was that no gods exist, then if I said, well, I don't accept that, then you can just say, oh, well, if you're not an atheist, then you're a theist.
Yeah.
Just like how people say, well, if you're not a theist, you're an atheist.
Yeah, exactly. Because think about this. If you don't, in number C, if there does not exist like one God, if you accept that, you do agree you're an atheist. That is not contentious. But if you don't accept it, you can't just say they're still an atheist. Because that means no matter what you have on it, you're always an atheist. You've got to have a dichotomy in that case, if that's how you're using these terminologies.
Yeah.
So or I should say dichotomy. You actually have to have a contradictory. There's a contradictory is basically something that if one is true, the other one's false, and vice versa. Difference than a contrary. A contrary would be one is true, the other's false, or both can be false, but both cannot be true. So the way it's actually thought of in the literature is that theism is the belief that gods exist. Atheism is the belief that gods do not exist. If ontologically, think about this. If there is a God, in this case, atheism would be false. If there isn't a God, then atheism would be true, right? So it's one or the other. One has to be true, the other one has to be false. But both can't be false. They're not contraries, right? One has to be true.
No, they can both be false.
No.
I mean, if you're
It's either God or not God.
Well, that's true. I mean, unless you're talking about a specific God, because if everybody's wrong, then I mean,
well, again, we're talking there's at least one God exists, or at least one God does not exist, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're using the way I in the literature uses it, then both of them cannot be false. Atheism and theism cannot be both false. One of them has to be the true. But anyway, so I think people get the fact that this is why I don't use atheism, because I'm just as equally in that regard justified to say a weak atheist as Lawrence would be. Lawrence could call himself a weak theist. He means the same thing as a weak atheist in this case. There is no difference except epistemically, because he might have reasons, right? He's not promoting theism, right? He doesn't want to normalize theism. So he has reasons why he accepts weak atheism, because he probably wants to normalize atheism, which I think is fine. I understand people want to do that. So there are epistemic reasons why we accept different terminologies, even though they might be logically equivalent to each other.
Well, yeah, and I don't think that Lawrence is interested in proving that any other gods exist, because I mean, I don't. I mean, Lawrence, correct me if I'm misrepresenting you, but I don't believe that Lawrence believes in any of the gods that he's been presented with.
Probably not. No, because he'd be a theist if he did.
I'm gonna go with no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but you see though, because if he holds to weak theism and he just lays himself a theist, right? In this case, he would be a theist that doesn't believe in God, which sounds absurd, but that's how the logic would work.
Well, yeah, I don't know. That just
Okay, but this is where your brain just gets split, dude, because you're so used to one way. But think about this just with the logic. If he accepts,
I see it.
Okay,
I see
all
it.
because a lot of people have a hard time with that. But wait a minute here. How can you be a theist and not believe in God? Same reason why you can be an atheist and not believe, or same way you can be an atheist, but not have the belief that gods don't exist. If you're going to
the issue is it's kind of like it's special pleading, really, because you're using this hard definition for one thing and not for the other.
Yes.
Yeah,
totally agree. Yeah, I mean, an atheist can sit there and say, well, an atheist is anybody who doesn't believe in theism, or believe that anybody who doesn't believe a God exists. But a theist could say, well, with the proposition of at least one, there does not exist one God, is anybody who doesn't accept there isn't a God is a theist. Yeah. What's the difference? It is mirroring. And by the way, Alex Malpass on Use of Reason kind of makes this argument, but in a much more advanced way than I could ever hope to.
Does a weak atheist?
I don't think it's an argument he's putting forth. What?
Does a weak atheist have a burden of proof?
We're going to get into burden of proof later.
Okay.
Okay, so D, I maintain if not BP is allowed to be weak atheism for at least one God exists, then colloquially reduced to atheism, which Lawrence would do. What I mean by that is, if he accepts weak atheism, he just reduces it colloquially to atheism. Then by mirroring not BP with respect to the proposition there does not exist at least one God, would be weak theism, which reduces to theism. Meaning that if one does not accept the proposition is true, that there are no gods, then they would be a theist in the same way that if one does not accept the proposition that at least one God exists, are colloquial atheist. Again, this is my argument. I don't necessarily know it's novel, but it is an argument that I'm making. People can evaluate it on their own. This is nothing that I can send them to a citation or a page that has argued this before like this. If there has been, I have never seen it. I'm sure somebody has. I don't believe this can be that novel, right? But I'm the only one that seems to be arguing this. So, well, you know what? Malik came close in his paper. Malik actually said that agnosticism is no more near theism than atheism, but he doesn't use the term weak theist. But I'm sure somebody has. I'm sure I may have read it somewhere. I'm not trying to take credit for something that I gleaned from something else, but I got to tell you, everything is derivative. But I've never seen it stated this way. How's that? That make sense?
Yeah.
Because again, I don't plagiarize. You know what? I've been on the air 5 years. I don't think I've ever been accused of plagiarizing. Everybody
Well,
gets accused of that
that's good.
sometime, right? Well, I've been accused of all kinds of other heinous shit, but yeah, not plagiarism. Strange. I do cite things very well, I think, because I took MLA in college. Uh, don't do it. You never use it.
I fucking hate MLA.
Oh God, dude, I hated that course. You have no idea. I got an A plus actually, but man, I hated it. Uh, so where is that? So I maintain that one accepts that you don't believe P as atheism, but rejects D here. They are guilty of special pleading. You agreed on that, Lawrence. I hold that logically weak atheism, agnosticism, and weak atheism are logically equivalent as per B and C, justified by D. Again, go to my webpage, www.greatdebatecommunity.com, and I have that in a argument under 3NA philosophy. It's that long, though. It's a very, very long argument. All right, moving on. Number 5. Here we go. Different topic. Definitions are generally either descriptive, prescriptive, or stipulative. One is free to use stipulative definitions to convey, to simplify conversations if both parties agree, or is asserted as an argument to be evaluated or used in context with the argument. I use stipulative definitions all the time. They're simplistic. Somebody says, "What's your definition of God?" I'll throw something out there. You do not have to be beholden to a stipulative definition. A stipulative definition usually is just to facilitate the conversation or to keep it going, right? You're not prescribing it. This word has some kind of intrinsic meaning, right? So there's nothing wrong with using stipulative definitions or neologisms or something that you've come up with, right? If you have this phrase that you've created that conveys a concept that's nobody ever used before, I think that's wonderful. I love that. I try to do that. I don't always succeed, but I think that's a wonderful approach to create new things that convey a meaning that had not been expressed clearly before. People do it all the time in papers. You actually read a philosophical paper and they'll say, I refer to this as this, right? That's how new things come to be. Now, you don't have to accept it. You can say, I think that's a silly way of looking at it. I don't like it the way it's stated. But to say, well, what are you citing for that? Who else uses it that way? We're like, no, I made it up. Oh, you're just making shit up. No, that's not how it works, right? I've heard these types of arguments. I'm not even kidding, right? Lawrence, I had somebody the other day, I shit you not, they asked me to prove my assumptions, to prove my axioms, my premises.
Well, you can't really do that because they're assumptions.
It blows my mind. And actually, I did a...
if they don't want to make those same assumptions, fine.
Well, I did a little blog on how to attack arguments, and it's very small. I need to really make it larger, and we're going to have a hangout on that one day. I think, to properly attack arguments. And again, I am not a pro on this, right? I'm only giving you a very basic layperson thing, but there are 12 really specific ways where you can, I think it's 12, look at it and address how to attack an argument. You can attack various principles as well. So you can attack the logic, you can attack the soundness, you can attack principle of sufficiency, principle of relevancy, there's a whole bunch of different principles you can attack. But we're going to get into that one of these days.
I think it's totally fine to like question someone's presuppositions.
Sure. You can't prove presuppositions, though.
Right, yeah.
Asking somebody to prove... But this is what bugs me. They'll say, well, Steve, I don't accept your argument. First, they say my arguments are illogical. Then I ask them to show how the logic's invalid. They can't, because the logic is fine, right? We all know rules of inferences. So the reality is the logic's not invalid. They mean the soundness, and they say, okay, your premises are untrue. And when somebody says your premises are untrue, therefore your argument is illogical, that doesn't follow. It just means it's not a good argument, right?
Sure.
But when they say, well, I don't accept your premise. Okay, well, why? Because you haven't proven it. Do they not realize how that sounds? It makes no freaking sense. You don't have to accept my premises. But if you can't find a defeater for my premise, or you cannot show the premise to be wrong, then I'll just go on thinking it's a good argument, right? That's all. You don't have to accept my premise. You don't have to accept my argument. I'm not, you not accepting my argument does not mean my argument's wrong. I'm more interested for people to show me the argument's wrong, because then I won't use that argument, or I'll shore it up, right? I'm looking for people that can actually show the arguments are wrong, and I'm happy when they do. I've shored up many an argument that way, because I thought about it and I went, shit, they're right. Okay, I have to fix that. But if you just tell me that you don't accept my argument, I'm just going to be like, okay, moving on to somebody else. I really don't care. Um, I hate to say it, but it's just I can't be bothered by people who just don't accept my arguments. I want to know why. Okay. So prescriptive definitions only tell you how a word ought to be best used and understood, the word in context and relationship to a particular field. All that particularly means is that I would say something like the prescriptive definition of evolution in biology is something along the lines of a change of allelic frequency in any given population of species from one generation to the next generation over time. I'm going to take that prescriptively. That is how that word ought to be used in biology.
Right.
You don't have to accept that. You can think that evolution means, chemical
6
evolution.
different things.
Yeah, you can do the Hovind approach. Doesn't mean I agree with you, right?
Yeah.
But I do argue that prescriptively, biology is to be best understood in context in reading a paper on biology in that regard.
I believe that we came from monkeys. That should be one of the definitions.
But why are there still monkeys?
Because I don't know. Have you seen some of the people around where I live?
That's true.
Hey, Steve.
You have sex with monkeys, you know that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Steve, you should subscribe to PewDiePie.
I'm not going to get into that T-Series.
Dude, subscribe to PewDiePie, man.
How many is PewDiePie up to now?
I don't know, like
80 billion?
79 million, I think.
Yeah, I don't know the T-Series PewDiePie fight. I've never got into it. I just looked at it. I don't care. I don't even know what the hell it's about. Like, my God, people are going nuts over it.
Yeah, it's the best meme of 2018.
Oh, he must be loving life.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he pretty much just told people, okay, just fucking calm it down. It's gotten out of
He
control.
went from 50 some odd million to like 80 million in a matter of a month or something.
In the past 3 months, he's gained like 10 million subscribers.
Wow,
that's ridiculous.
I'm happy to gain like 100.
Yeah,
this channel has just gotten over 7,000, and it's been 5 years on this channel. By the way, it helps spread the word, man. I mean, Non Sequitur has 20,000. It's going to hopefully blow up this year. We are trending, by the way. We actually just got a new badge. Social Blades. This page has been visited a lot. So Non Sequitur is taking off. But hopefully this channel will as well, because I do this stuff all the time that we don't do on Non Sequitur. I go into much more detail here, and hopefully people will enjoy it. My Patreons, I appreciate it. Going into the new year, hopefully I'm adding a lot more content to this channel, talking about a lot more.
Patrons. Your patrons.
Sorry.
Don't Brett Keenan up.
I don't have a lot, but the patrons I have, I value immensely. They without them, I would be screwed. I love them. Every single one of them. I'm just so grateful for them. Believe me. And it's not a lot. My Patreon is very nominal, to say the least. So every dollar does make a difference, and I just thank you for it. Let's see here. Modern dictionaries provide you with descriptive definitions of how a word is used in the most widest interpretation used in general parlance. So basically, most dictionaries, I don't think there even are prescriptive dictionaries any longer. If there are, I don't know of any. But nowadays, dictionaries are descriptive, meaning they just tell you the most charitable interpretation of a word. It doesn't tell you what it means. It does mean. Contrary to what people believe, dictionaries do not define words. They don't. And what I mean by that is they don't prescriptively define it to be this is how this word is to be used, ought to be used, or should be used. This is how generally, in the most liberal, broadest interpretation, somebody could interpret this kind of word most of the time. Right. All right. And then I'm going to give an example. Wikipedia states that mathematics has no general accepted definition. Okay. Right. So Oxford, however, will give a general definition. The abstract science of number, quantity, and space, either as abstract quantities, pure mathematics, or as applied or other disciplines such as physics and engineering, applied mathematics. That's not a prescriptive dictionary definition. Oxford is not saying the term mathematics is defined to be this. It is not saying that you need to use this definition in understanding the term mathematics. It's giving a very broad definition. Because like I said, Wiki even states mathematics has no generally accepted definition. It's a very, very broad term. However, there are prescriptive definitions within mathematics, such as I, the imaginary number, is defined to be the square root of -1, right? Would you agree? I mean, that's what I is defined to be. What's the definition of I?
Yes.
The square root
Yes.
of -1.
Right.
That is prescriptive, right? That's telling you this is what I means. That is exactly what prescriptive is. It is telling you what it means or ought to mean when you see I. This does not mean, however, that it doesn't have any other uses. Like I can represent the index of a summation. So if you see a summation symbol and I equals 1 to infinity, it doesn't mean imaginary number equals 1 to infinity. It's a different usage of the word I
Right.
or the
Can
letter
also
I.
mean Illuminati.
It does mean the Illuminati. However, you're not supposed to say that on air. They do listen.
Oh.
It's like this. It's like this, dude. You got to do it right. It's the all-seeing
Like
eye.
this?
Yeah,
Oh,
come
see,
on.
I'm not a
Yeah.
real member, obviously. Steve knows all about it.
You know what? He's faking it really is. I write his checks for the Illuminati, so it's in the mail. Go wait for it. So prescriptive definitions tell you how something ought to be understood to mean. It does not mean that a same word or symbol cannot be polysemous or used in a different way in a different sense or different context. So when you see people ever say that Steve is a prescriptivist, I'm not a prescriptivist, which can mean also different things as well. Yeah, these words have different meanings. But yeah, I don't say that just because a word is defined in philosophy this particular way, that it must be used this way. I do argue that it ought to be the best um, be understood, or it must be used. I will argue this: it must be understood this way to properly understand certain papers, or else you just won't.
Sure.
Right?
I'll be right back, guys.
Sure. Because if I say to you, Jim, hey, you must understand I to be imaginary number as the definition of the square root of -1 to understand a mathematical paper dealing with complex numbers, would you not agree? You must understand it that way, or it's not going to make sense.
Right.
What's wrong with that? It's not telling you that you have some moral obligation to. It's not telling you you have some deontological reason by
Right.
duty to accept that. It is telling you must to do this for you to understand it. Because if you think I means an index and you're talking about complex numbers, it's not going to make any sense to you.
Right. Like, I mean, and that's why it's important to clarify what you're talking about and what definition you're using, because if two
Yes.
mathematicians agree to a meeting, they don't know what they're talking about, and one starts talking about I, that, and they don't have there's nothing contextual that the other mathematician can draw a conclusion from, and they have no idea what the hell they're talking about until they define what I
I
is.
agree with you, but what do you think the standard is? If I say to somebody in math, what is I in math? You know that the standard is imaginary, right? So there is a
Yeah.
standard to be had, but that doesn't mean that, just like atheism, there's a standard to be had of how the word is used in the literature. Doesn't mean it can't be used other ways. Same
Yeah.
principle.
Right. Wouldn't it be fair to say that if you're not going into it using the general the most general definition, that it's important to clarify
Yes.
the least commonly held ideas definition?
Yeah. No. Again, I'm not against clarification, but what I get people telling me, Jim, is that Steve says you must accept atheism to mean this, or you're not an atheist, or you must
Oh,
accept it, right? But here's the thing.
that's just a flat out lie.
Well, I know it's
Is what
bullshit.
yeah, it's just a flat out lie that has nothing to do with your logic or anything or your claim. That's just a lie.
Right.
I mean,
If I said to you, hey Jim, you must accept I is always imaginary number. That'd be dumb for me to say that. You
yeah.
must accept I with the caveat to understand this paper on complex numbers to be the square root of -1. But again, people don't understand these nuances, and they're out there saying Steve says you must accept this definition to be an atheist. This is the only definition of atheism that the only way it makes sense. Well, these are all bullshit or straw mans, and this is why one of the reasons um, I'm doing this. Okay, so moving on here. I argue that sensu stricto, which just means in the strict sense, definitions are always more narrow, but one is not obligated to use strict sensu stricto definitions in a way and in the same context as sensu lato, which means in the broad sense definitions, as it may be practical or useful in a given context or discussion. For example, Jim, if you're at a atheist Republic convention or something, right? You're going to be using the word atheism the way they use, right?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's just because there's pragmatic reasons to do so for you. and you hold to that too. But anybody else, they may go into there. I may use their definitions in that situation because I don't want to sit there and have a 5 hour discussion on this topic. But if somebody asks me, "Are you an atheist?" I'll be like, "No," and they say, "Are you an atheist?" I'll be like, "No." I'm still going to answer the proper way, but I'm not going. I'm not going to.
Well, yeah,
I'm still going to say you're an atheist. Oh, look, I'm still going to say everybody in this room is an atheist because they're an atheist, whether they hold to whatever definition or not.
exactly. Yeah, I would use it in the broadest sense as to be all encompassing.
Yeah, which is fine. Right, I got no issue with that. So it really depends on your context and your discussion, right, and your situation. So this is why when people say, that Steve insists people use these definitions, that's just bullshit. That's just outright freaking stupid. F, I use use of definitions is situational and words do not have intrinsic meaning, but usages. I know Matt Delahunty says that a lot. I do agree with him. I tend to avoid words and phrases such as better or worse, more correct, good and bad, as I see those as more of a value judgments. And I do not believe that any definition is better or worse than another, but more or less useful or given context. Now, I say this generally speaking, and I may have this on here because people might get to be pendants about it, but obvious if I say like a definition for a word that is just egregiously wrong, right? Then that is an incorrect definition. Would you agree? I mean, something like if I say the definition for an imaginary number is the square root of 12.
Yeah, I'd say that's wrong.
Yeah, it's just clearly wrong. So there are some cases where you can't say the definition is clearly wrong. But if something that along the lines of an accepted definition somewhere, there's no better or worse intrinsically. Now, I can say that I think it's better to use a particular definition for this goal. Lawrence, and this is like, for example, Lawrence would argue that it's better to use the colloquial definition of atheism if your goal is to normalize atheism. Fair argument.
Yeah,
I could disagree with that, and I do. I think that it's actually counterproductive, but it's not an illogical argument that he's making.
Yeah, but I don't feel like that he's using that term to normalize atheism, but he's using that term because that is what is generally understood.
Could be. It could be either way, but I mean, Lawrence, do you use the term to normalize atheism?
Well, you're both actually right. So it's kind of both.
Yeah, no,
because the way that
both of us.
Well, sure, we're sharing you, Lawrence. It's okay.
Yeah, it's
I get top.
Yeah, let's fucking do this.
I am more. I say I'm more gay than Kyle sometimes. I don't get it. And I love women. Oh, whatever. Go ahead, Lawrence. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
He lost his train of. He's actually look at this. He's thinking about this, going.
So this might be good. Yeah, I'll take it like a man.
Saturday might be fun.
Yeah, it's I take the term because that is how it's generally understood. But I also think that the term and atheists shouldn't just be fucking demonized. And it's not. And like I've met plenty of theists that also agree that it shouldn't be demonized.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But it's used often, like not believing in God is like used so often as an attack that I'm using the label and using a much different approach than other atheists.
Well, let me ask you this then. And by the way, real quick before I ask you, somebody had said, but normalizing. Carol says, but normalizing tends to muddle the topic sometimes. And then again, I think there's a lot of things muddling. Jake, how was your date with Brittany Simon? It wasn't a date. I had lunch with her. I'm not dating her. I don't think of her that way. I'm not saying that I couldn't, but she's a wonderful human being. We have fun. She's one of the most interesting people I have to talk to, and I know her in real life. I think the world of her. She's a brilliant human. But yeah, we're not a date. I guarantee it. I'm not saying that I wouldn't probably. Well, you know what? I wouldn't. I wouldn't date Brittany. I love her to death, but just not compatible. I don't think. Well, I don't know. She's a woman.
Hear that, Brittany? You're friend zoned.
Oh,
No, we've already no we were dude. I love Brittany. She's straight up. I had this discussion with her from day one. You know, I know want to know where I stand with people. Well, they stand with me, and I love her to death. But I'm not going down that route with her. but hey, I've seen her naked. Does that count?
I mean, that's something.
That's something. Yeah, I'm not an idiot. I'm gonna look.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she poses a lot. But she's a wonder. Oh my gosh, she's so freaking cool. People, I'm telling you, go to Brittany Simon's channel and subscribe to her. She's a feminist, by the way, and people know that I'm not into feminism, but she's a rational feminist. She's progressively an activist, and I like the way she presents her arguments.
Do you know who Liana Kay is?
No.
Oh, she is pretty much the only feminist that all anti-feminists like. She's fucking awesome. I fucking love her. She's great.
Well, I mean, Christy Waters is on. I think that's her name. I've listened to her. I like McRae's. You know, the feminist
Wait,
story.
you said Christy Waters?
No, what's her name tonight?
Is it Christy Winters?
Winters, not Waters.
Oh my god.
Christy Winters. But I've listened to her. So I mean, I'm not against the concepts. It's just that I as Brittany was saying, people see radical feminism, and that's kind of what they think is the norm, and I think that's probably true. Because who the hell wants to see radical feminism? It's just bizarre. If I get one person telling me I'm mansplaining, I just. But
No,
okay, so what were you? So Lawrence, what were we saying? You were talking about.
Well, I explained my position, and then you said, "Let me ask you something," and then started reading.
Yeah, ask you about. What was it about normalization? Somebody refresh my memory. What the hell we were talking about?
I was talking about how I use it because people generally understand it that way, and because it shouldn't be a demonized term. It shouldn't just be viewed as like this, like an immoral.
Oh yeah,
saint.
yeah, I remember. Okay, my train of thoughts all over the place. Okay, I do remember what I was going to say. You said something along the lines of because if a person identifies as an atheist, they get attacked for that because of the taking the label, and I do agree that happens, right? Here's the funniest thing: you and I, again, we share the same position. I think that we probably agree on 99% of ontology, and it sounds like we pretty well agree on almost everything. We are not. Neither one of us are believers, right? And yet,
Right,
I don't
yeah.
get shit for not believing.
yeah, and 99% of the
See, that's weird because I do.
Yeah, because you're taking the label of atheism, maybe. I'm wondering if it's because of the
Sure.
label of atheism more than just fact not believing. Because I really don't get shit for not believing that much. Jim?
But if you were to present your beliefs without a label, 99% of the theists would call you an atheist.
Yeah, but I also have a lot of atheists that call me theist.
Sure. But here's the thing, though. Okay.
But again,
Right,
those
right.
same
I got you. Jim.
if you were to present those same beliefs without a label, they would also call you an atheist.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to disagree with that. Yeah.
All right. Here's the thing, because I get plenty of shit for being called an atheist, but at the same time, I get theists going onto the channel and saying that they judged a book by its cover. Like they watched a video I made and they loved it. They're like, wow, this was very well presented. You're not like the other atheists. I wish more atheists were like you. And it's like don't judge a book by its cover kind of thing.
Yeah, I know. I get that. That's probably why I don't get much shit either from theists. I have a lot of theists that respect me, right? Like Gart and S.J. Thomason, General Han Solo, because I don't give them shit for believing. I will give them shit for a bad argument. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, well, it's because neither of you are anti-theist, and that's the.
Yeah, no. I mean, I know anti-theists. I don't think they have a problem with either. Shannon Q's an anti-theist. Goddess Cranium's an anti-theist, but they're pretty respectful, obviously.
Yeah. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian,
Hey, what's going on, Jim?
Not much, man. Good to see you.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Steve.
Yes.
As per your last post in Philosophical Atheist,
Mhm.
you're wrong. Your total argument is wrong. Everything is wrong.
And I
I'm kidding. I'm giving you shit.
and I'm a horrible human being.
Yes, you are.
Christy Santiago says she's a progressive egalitarian feminist, and I get that, right? I'm an egalitarian as well. I think if you're not an egalitarian, then there's something to be said, right? If you're one of those guys out there saying men are superior to women. Women shouldn't have the right to vote. Men own women as property. Women.
Yeah, you're just a piece of shit.
That's a piece of shit. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Exactly. I don't even get to that level of argumentation with people. I'm like, you're just a fucking piece of shit. Don't give me this. I won't even bother entertaining that level of fuckery. Does that make sense? I can't stand that. Right? If you're gonna sit there and try to argue me that some race is better or some sex is better in that regard, yeah, you go play with somebody else. I just don't.
Well, some sex is better than other.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. Good point. Yes.
Sorry, a little divergent there.
We've been on and off of that, literally.
Yeah. Off and on, in and out. All right, let's try to get
in
through
and
this.
out. Damn it!
Yeah.
I was fucking.
Yeah, I got there first.
Repeatedly.
No, just the one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
so
right.
here we go. Any philosophical colloquial definition can be accepted or rejected, but I maintain that a sufficient reason should be given as to why someone accepts or rejects an offered definition or position. I'm going to add that too in there. Because look I made this argument before. I exist. If you say you do not believe that I exist, I find it to be irrational. But you need to give me a really good reason why you don't believe that I exist, right? Because I hold that don't believing is a type of position. Right? This is the whole argument of I don't believe in God. It's a non-position. Well, wait a minute. If you don't think that I'm existing, if you hold the position that I do not exist, why would you not think you have some kind of burden to justify that? Because I hold that would be an irrational position to think that I do not believe that I exist.
Yeah.
This makes sense to me.
But also, if you believe you exist and you want others to believe that you exist, how would you convince them?
There you go.
Well, I mean, it'd be hard because of the problem of hard solipsism, right?
Right. I don't think there's a solution to that.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I think people have to be convinced themselves.
Pull your dick out.
Check this out, baby. Yeah, this is real.
Believe.
Believe.
I'll make you a believer.
Yeah.
you can't Photoshop this.
Hey, Lawrence. I'll make
it's
you,
like, look. You see all the children running? I'm real.
I'll make you find God and scream Jesus like you wouldn't believe. No.
Oh man, I can't wait.
One of these days I have to research why people cry out, "Oh my God," in all these different languages when they're having sex. I know there's a reason.
It's just colloquial language that has been passed. It's like,
make it more interesting than that.
Because it's
Right.
so good you can't believe it.
yeah,
Ooh.
very good. Well played. Well played.
Jim's on fire today.
I'm saying.
It's divine. That's what it is.
Oh. But here's an interesting argument. Fundamentalists will make. Well, if God isn't real, why is his name used as a swear word so much? It's like, do you know who invented using God's name as a swear word?
Theist?
Christians.
Yeah.
It goes
Elites.
back.
And by the way, that is a hardcore reification fallacy. Reification fallacy is taking something that is abstract and making it concrete. So just because somebody's using God's name doesn't mean that God actually ontologically exists. That's a reification fallacy.
Yeah.
Right. Well, their argument is that he's hated so much. That's why we're using his name as a swear word.
People hate the concept. There's a difference, right? I can hate Superman, but
right?
That doesn't mean that I believe Superman exists. You hate the concept.
Correct.
Huge difference. In order to hate Superman as an entity, I have to first believe that Superman exists.
Correct.
As an object. So for me to actually hate God, which would be a mesotheist, that is a subset of theism.
Right. And I think Mr. Atheist did a perfect video on this where he described if you read a piece of literature like Lord of the Rings, you can hate the protagonist in a way that you hate fictional characters.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean you carry that belief into the real world, into your everyday life.
Yeah, and I think that's a horrible argument theists make. That's like flat earth levels dumb.
Yeah, well,
Right.
it's the same thing as people saying that you're an atheist because you hate God. It's like, no, I can hate the concept of God, but I believe that God
Right.
is real.
I'll shit on theists all day long when they make that kind of stupid argument.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, if the Christian God turned out to be real, I would hate that God.
Yeah.
He's a piece of shit.
Right.
I would say
based
Christian,
on the literature,
yeah.
based on
Yeah.
the literature that we're presented with. I mean,
Based on how he's
Yeah, I
portrayed.
would say the Christian God, the way that a way of interpreting, the literature.
If the Bible accurately represents his character, he's a
Right.
piece of shit.
right. I mean,
okay,
well, it's like if we had committed the same horrible acts
we'd
that
be
the
immoral.
God of the old, yeah, whatever. Yes, if we committed the same acts that Yahweh did, even just half of them, we would be thrown in prison for the rest of our lives, and the key would be thrown away. And I think I like what Dan Barker said. His description is
No, you're
so.
you're breaking up there a little bit, Brian.
Am I breaking up?
We got the most of it though.
Okay.
All right. So let me try to get through here. It is not inconsistent in some contexts to prefer a philosophical definition over a colloquial, but it is dependent upon situation and what one is trying to convey in an argument or discussion. So in one case, I might prefer a philosophical definition. In another place, I might prefer a colloquial definition. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no inconsistency there. The only inconsistent would be if you use a philosophical definition and a colloquial definition in the same argument. I think that's inconsistent. But there are times where you might want to use a colloquial definition if you have a different argument. If I'm arguing something with Jim and I step into his framework, I could use maybe his definition, right, in order to facilitate the argument, just like he did with mine. He was more than willing to. I said a while ago, before you got here, Brian, I said, hey, Jim, just for this minute, accept that atheism is a belief that gods don't exist. And he's able to step out of his position and entertain mine. That's how you have a decent conversation. So people do that all the time. You can take a different definition for practicality and for situations. There's no inconsistency there at all. And Jay, typically a single word can have different philosophical meanings, right? Agnosticism, relativism, realism, naturalism means different things, right? Naturalism can be methodological naturalism, philosophical naturalism, ontological naturalism, which is the same thing. It also natural can mean different things as well. But and no one philosophical definition has a higher standing than another, and a person is free to use the definition they prefer, that they believe best expresses the meaning of the concept that they are trying to convey. How is that contentious?
Right. I mean, it's not, and you use agnosticism because you believe that it most accurately represents the concept that you're trying to convey.
Right. And same thing with the word natural. If I hold to a non-natural understanding of G.E. Moore's "What is the Good," if somebody says, "Well, that means Steve believes in the supernatural," no, it's non-natural in that regard. It has nothing to do with supernatural or natural. It has to do with a very specific way of interpreting what it means to be the good with how to avoid the naturalistic fallacy.
Lawrence, do you believe that that atheism more accurately represents your position than agnosticism does, or
Well,
weak atheism?
that obviously depends on the definition, how people are using it.
Sure.
Yes,
No,
then
I mean, using it in its philosophical definition.
no, in philosophical definitions, then agnosticism would be my position.
But do you believe that more accurately represents you? Like,
Yeah, under philosophical definitions, yes.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is, do you believe that the philosophical definition or the more colloquially accepted definition best represents you? Like, is that the reason that you use atheism, because it better represents you?
Well, I'm using the colloquial definition, and the colloquial definition does represent me.
Right, but does the colloquial definition of atheism represent you better than the philosophical definition of agnosticism?
I think so, yeah.
And
Okay.
for what reasoning?
It's mostly because of what I do and how I think.
Because it sounds better than Milwaukee agnostics.
Well, I mean, that's true. It does sound better than Milwaukee agnostics, but also simply because of the positions I take. Usually arguing against the Bible, talking about its history and stuff, and talking about the stuff that the skeptic community generally talks about too. I am more aligned with them than with theist to a high degree.
Yeah, I don't find fault with his reasoning. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. So with you, Steve, I was going to ask you the same question. Do you believe that the philosophical term agnostic better represents you than the colloquially accepted
Yeah, because
term?
I have no allegiance or ideology for atheism or theism. Right?
Hmm.
I just think that
See, that's something to ponder too, is whether a person, because I mean there are some positions that I'm sure that Lawrence would take where he would use the philosophically accepted terminology, because it better represents him. So wouldn't it be safe to say that people are use one definition over the other because it better represents them?
yeah. I mean, again, I don't think Lawrence has a bad way of expressing it at all. It works for him. He's justified. Now, my big concern is not so much the label people take. So another misunderstanding. If he wants to be called an atheist, okay. I do believe that the baggage that goes along with that, but I'm much, much more concerned if he understands the difference, and he clearly, absolutely does. So my big pet peeve is when you have people like Matt Dillahunty and Jacqueline Smith, David Silverman, and all these other activists that maintain the narrative that atheism is only a lack of belief. It cannot be any other thing, and that's the only definition. And there's no room for nuance. There's nothing. You hear Seth Andrews talking about it, and you say, look at, if you do not have a belief, you are an atheist by necessity. I've heard that as well before too. That is not by necessity, because if you hold to philosophical definitions, clearly necessity is not the word to use there. That's what I take
Or by
umbrage of.
default.
If somebody says, look at, here's the way it is in philosophy, here it is the way we're promoting it, like American Atheist does. Okay, now I can then argue which one does have more utility. That's a different argument. But at that point, they understand the difference. I think Matt Dillahunty does understand the difference, um, but he doesn't seem he doesn't seem to tell people that there's a difference. Maybe he doesn't. I do not know. I like to give him
I
the
don't
benefit of the doubt and think that
that
he
it would be
does.
so much. I don't think it'd be so much out of necessity as it would be out of desire to know. Like I don't think that you have as much of a desire to know whether God's exists as Lawrence
I
does,
don't.
for example.
I mean, I do. I mean, I do tend to apatheistic a little bit, and I mean that in a way as I don't care whether God exists or not in relationship to the argument. Of course, I'd like to know, right? I mean, I'm not that apatheistic where I wouldn't like to know,
Right,
but
but
I'm not
are
going to
you
rack my brain around whether he does or if there is a God or not, because I'd just be spinning my wheels.
exactly? You're not going to set out to prove or disprove,
Right.
right?
But I don't
Whereas,
think Matt Dillahunty does either. All he does is sit back and basically say, "Hey, you know what? Tell me all your arguments. I'm just going to ignore all of them, basically, and just say
yeah,
you're
well,
wrong." That's all he has
I
to do.
feel like
You're wrong, or I don't
you
believe you. Okay, well, any idiot can say that. Now, I'm not saying Matt's an idiot. He is very intelligent. I happen to like Matt, but it doesn't
right.
take a genius to say I don't believe your argument. You need to give reasons, and I do think Matt does. He actually most of the time will give reasons, except when it comes to me for some reason. And when he does give reasons, they're straw manning. I don't know, but.
Yeah.
We got to bring you and Matt back together.
Smitty says, I'm still waiting for Steve to admit Christian non-theism is possible. It's not. It is a contradiction. You can have Christian atheism, but that's a subset of atheism, not theism. Christian atheists are atheists. What they do is they believe the philosophy of Jesus, but they don't accept the divinity. So they don't hold
Yeah,
that there
like
are
the
gods. They are
like
atheists. Yeah.
like Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, Christian non-theism is not possible. It is an inherent contradiction. Do you guys agree?
Yes,
Okay.
agreed.
Um, let's see. I argue that anyone that has position, evaluation, opinion, or proposition has a burden of proof to make it rational. Um, I just think that that's again my opinion. If you want to say that something is right or wrong, you need to give a reason. If you accept, you don't accept, you need to give a reason. That's it. A burden of proof is just an epistemic duty one has to somebody else or to yourself to justify your beliefs, or position, or claims, or anything like that. Nothing complicated. Um, um, he says, are atheists or non-theists? Yes. That's not Christian non-theism. That is the fact that you're because you're saying they're non. Well, I guess okay. The way I'm thinking, the way Smitty's wording it. If you talk about Christian non-theist as they are non-theist, then right. If you're talking about Christian non-theism as if they're Christians, then no. So let me stipulate that. So if you're saying there could be Christian non-theist, then Well, I got a problem with that because um,
You
Christian,
would have to
because now
define
you're
what you mean.
relating, you're now you're saying that non-theism is atheism, and I deny that, right? So if you say Christian atheist, an atheist who, well, let's see here, Christian atheist uh, is
Are you talking about the deity Jesus Christ, or just the man Jesus Christ? That's the thing.
well, yeah, exactly. Well, Christian atheists, as far as I understand, Christian atheists, they don't believe in any God, right? So they are atheist.
Right.
They follow the
They don't believe
philosophy.
in the deity Jesus Christ. They believe in the man.
Right. And so, in that regard, they are obviously under the category of non theist, but they're not
Sure.
equal to non theist because under non theism, you have atheism, but not all, so all non theist, so all atheists are non theists, but not all non theists are atheists.
Right. So there can be some atheist Christians that are atheists, but some can be agnostic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, under you, well, sort of. You can't be, if you're agnostic on something, then you can't be atheist or theist. But anyways, we're getting off a tangent there. I maintain that the epistemological burden of proof and burden of justification have no epistemic difference. And I asked Ozzy this very question just I wanted to make sure if he had any difference. He agrees, or he says, and I'm not using him as a claim or as me as an expert. I wanted his opinion on it.
Whoa.
Burden of proof and burden of judgment. He knows of no epistemic difference. I know of no epistemic difference. If somebody has an epistemic difference, please tell me, because there's nowhere I can find any single difference between the two in epistemology. In legal sense, yes, there's a huge difference.
Okay.
Or in two-party argumentation, maybe. No, not
Right.
even then. But yeah, just in law is the difference that I found. A burden of proof can be a burden of persuasion or a burden of production, which a burden of production basically is the amount of burden you need to bring charges against somebody. All right. So that's a legal sense. I maintain that both acceptance and rejection of a claim require justification to be rational. I maintain that to reject a claim without justification as irrational is as accepting one without justification. This is a big one. Again, this is my personal view. If you reject a claim without justification, it is just as irrational as accepting one without justification. Now think about that. I mean, again, I exist. If you dismiss that claim, you don't accept that claim, it is very irrational to me. Just as much as by saying, "Hey, I am God," it is just as irrational for you to accept that without justification, right?
I don't know that it is possible to accept a claim without justification.
Oh, sure, we do it all the time. I'm a foundationalist, which means that I have properly basic beliefs that I accept without justification. They're non-justified. They cannot be justified.
Justification.
What?
Surely you had some justification.
Properly basic beliefs, by definition, cannot be justified inferentially or dosastically. They are irrational.
Such as, can you give me an example?
External minds exist. The universe is real. That there is something objectively in existence that's outside of my mind.
And there was nothing that made you think that was possible before.
Well, that's not what justification. It's not that it's possible. I have no. There's no way I could possibly validate any of that.
It doesn't mean it's justifiable to somebody else. It's just as long as it's justifiable to you.
No, but a justification is reasons for something. Now, it's more than just saying, well, I have a pragmatic reason for accepting these things, right? In this regard, when I talk about justification for the properly basic beliefs, properly basic beliefs are accepted axiomatically. Okay, you don't justify axioms because they're accepted at either as a brute fact or presuppositionally. So those are you cannot inferentially conclude them, right? They're foundational. That's why when somebody says they're non-inferentially justifiable, you cannot justify them by any means because there's no way you can draw an inference to get to them. You have to take them axiomatically. But that gets into the difference between foundationalism, coherentism, infantism, and again, very complex stuff. But just arguendo, properly basic beliefs are non-justifiable, and so yeah, we do accept certain things without justification, but that's because we say that they are irrational. But let's see here. Number 7, I believe arguments should be evaluated on their merits, and you should try to argue the argument, not against the person. We all fail at this miserably. I do it all the time. But I do think that we should address an argument, not the person. But we all fail at this. I agree. All right. Because people suck. I maintain that people should not just blindly agree or disagree with somebody out of sense of loyalty. I think Jim's amazing. I've only known Jim a very short period of time, but in the time I've got to know him, he's fast becoming one of my favorite people. Lawrence as well. Brian, not so much. But I'm kidding. You guys, all you guys.
Very good, Steve.
Good but one. All you guys, I've known. It's only been a few months, really, for the most part.
Right.
But
yeah, and likewise, I mean, you're one of my favorite people to talk to. It's
Heart. Hear that, Kyle? Hear that? But here's the thing. But if Jim makes a bad argument because he is my friend, I will try to point out why he has a bad argument, right? I'm not going to accept a bad argument for somebody just because I like them. Matter of fact, I believe that friends should tell people, I don't think your argument's very good. There's nothing wrong with that. I expect that. I want that, right? That's why I invite people to have these discussions. That's what my channel does. That's what my channel's been getting known for, has been for years, is that I invite discourse. I invite people to come in and say, well, I don't believe you. Let me show you why. Okay. I love that. So when people say I run from confrontation or something, or people say that I don't like people that disagree with me, I'm like, have you watched my channel? I mean, I wouldn't have anything to talk about if people didn't disagree with me as much. I like the fact that they do. I would suck if everybody agreed with me. I'd be boring as shit.
I disagree with you frequently.
Yes, he does. And you know what? We learn from each other though. Like
absolutely.
He's made good arguments, right? Again, I don't have to say that I accept his arguments, but I can't say that they're not. I can't say that they're bad arguments, right? They're not. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But I think we all do that, right?
True.
Okay. Here, I believe that certain people we hold to be more trustworthy should be given benefit of the doubt, and if ambiguity arises, clarification should be requested. In other words, an earned track record of trust versus duplicitous behavior. If Jim says something that I don't quite think is the case, or just I need clarification, I'm more willing to go, hey Jim, can you explain this to me more than I am to like G-Man. If he says something stupid, I'm just going to be done with it. I'm not going to ask him for clarification. I don't care. I don't have that rapport with him any longer to even care, right? But Jim's built up built up a trust that if he tells me something, even though I might find it to be bizarre, I want to know more about it. If he says, hey, Steve, the other day I was driving along like Brian is now, and I had these aliens come down and they took me right into the planet and, probed me, I'll be like, oh, really? Tell me more.
Right? Go on.
Yeah, go on. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm going to believe him right away, right? But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that something happened or that he thinks something happened. I'm not going to say that you're lying about that, because I do believe people have experiences they can't explain, or they may think that something has happened to them, but then you kind of realize, there's probably a naturalistic explanation. So, we're almost done here. Oh my God, thank God. 2.5 hours on this. I hope myself that I do not base my friendships on a litmus test, nor require anyone to hold any particular position or beliefs. Others should do the same. Granted that this case is difficult. Some people have extremely vile positions, and typically when they do, they're usually also an asshole or a toxic person who I wouldn't want to be friends with anyways. People that are Nazi sympathizers, people that are advocating putting homosexuals to death, Trump supporters. I'm kidding on the Trump supporters joke. But generally speaking, if a person has a position that I totally disagree with, it doesn't affect my friendship with them. Nate and I, we don't agree on this. Right, Nate Brody? We do not agree on this in any conceivable way. But but I like the guy a lot. I respect the ultimate respect for him. He's a patron on my channel too. But he knows we're not going to talk about this particular topic. But on other shit, I love talking to him. If you want to know legal stuff, go to Nate. I have his cell phone. I've talked to him many times. He's a great guy. But it's just certain topics we avoid. This is one of them.
I mean, there are certain topics I avoid with certain people. But so it's just really funny that I know that you have EX as example, but it looks like you're saying ex-Nazis. You don't want
to... Oh, you're...
Yes, it does.
That is great.
Trump supporters.
No,
so yeah, you just basically just called them all the same. That's great.
I can edit it on the fly. Isn't that great? You guys use WordPress?
Yeah, I love WordPress.
Oh God, isn't it?
I use it for my my horse sanctuary website.
Yeah, no, it's great. And unfortunately, I gotta move over the screen real quick. That's okay. I gotta get my update button. It didn't show on the screen. There we go. All right. So, anyways, I guess I can close that anyways and go back to full screen. And any questions
My
from
phone
the
has been
audience?
on 1% for 35 minutes and it has not died yet. And I'm sitting here watching the live chat on it.
What hasn't died?
My phone, it's been on 1% for over half an hour.
Are you broadcasting from your phone?
No. My phone's right here.
Oh. See, see, I'm the opposite. Mine gets down to like 10%, dies.
Mine has been on 1% for over half an hour at watching YouTube in the live chat.
Okay, let me check the live chat. Topic Thunder just befriended me on Facebook. Hi, Topic Thunder. Welcome back to the community. If you guys don't remember her, she's from England. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to give it 10 minutes. I'm going to end this at 11:30. We are having a show tonight at 1 with Sargon of Akkad and Christine Winters. So it's going to be on, something feminist stuff, I guess. No, it's not Sargon. I'm sorry, it's not Sargon tonight. My mistake. I take that back. It's with the guy that's an incel. He's the head of the incel.
It starts with an S.
Sugon. Yeah, it's not Sargon of Akkad. It's still something similar. But it's not Sargon of Akkad. Yeah.
Can't wait for that.
There's already drama going on right now on Twitter because you have Jeff Holiday, PZ Myers, and Christine Winters all having at it. It's a dumpster fire.
No way.
Oh yeah.
And I'll be there as well.
And by the way, when we're talking about Twitter, I was talking to when I was hanging out with Brittany the other day. This came up, and she was kind of shocked to hear this, and I am kind of shocked people don't wear this because I announce it all the time. Twitter is my dumpster fires. When you see me using capitals and all that kind of stuff, I'm not getting angry. I don't ever get angry in this shit. When people that are just not worth having a conversation with, I just fuck with them. I'm not going to admit that otherwise because they're a waste of goddamn time. I have a lot of people on Twitter that will go into a conversation that agree with me, and we'll just sit there and go, God, these people are just absolutely ridiculous. And I use them to show other people how ideological people can become, what ideologues are like. Because I've had people tell me exactly what I've said, that like logic doesn't always work, or that's not logical when you use something like a rule of inference, just because they want to maintain their positions. So I got to tell you, I don't get upset. I don't get mad. I'm usually just kicking it back, laying and typing on my laptop, just going, God, these people are stupid. But don't take anything I do on Twitter personally. I do believe my positions. But when you see me, talking to some rock atheist, no offense, Jim, or some just bizarre theologian guy that's just, advocating the most stupid of things, it's just dumpster fire shit. I mean, people get so worked up over it, and I'm like, especially when they start, throwing out shit. Like I had somebody, accuse me the other day of harassment. I'm like, go fuck yourself. Those are just buzzwords, and I had a lot of people jumping in going, when has Steve ever done this? Look, if you can't win an argument because of the merits of the argument, don't try to sit there and accuse me of things like harassment or stalking or crap like that. It's never going to fly. People know me too well, and I think it's just, it belittles the fact that these things actually do happen, and I think it actually is repugnant when people throw out shit like that just because they can't win an argument on any other way. It's just sad. All right, so let's wrap this up. 6 minutes. Come on, guys. Ask me questions. Here's your time.
I don't know. Everything was kind of cleared up.
Was it okay? I mean, did I make my point? Again, I might have some revisions to do with it, but do you think that if people straw man me after this, something's fucking wrong with them?
I really think everything is really self-explanatory. If he really just sits down and reads it, everything's really self-explanatory.
Yeah, but they probably won't read it.
No. But again, this is what I have my friends for and stuff like that. If you guys see people doing this, send them to that page. It's in the video description. Send them to the video, whatever. Again, you don't have to fight my battles for me. You don't have to argue on behalf of me. If you guys agree with me, great, do so. But even if you don't agree with me, I've had people say, you know what, I don't agree with Steve, but Steve doesn't believe that. I love that more than anything, I think.
Yeah, I actually think that this video really helped clarify for the people who just go to the blog and open it up and they're like, oh fuck this, I don't have time for this. They're saying is that they don't want to sit there and mentally process and work through everything. But I mean, I think watching this video would really help them clarify things, because I think we all brought up uh, interesting uh, interesting concerns regarding that.
Yeah,
That were
and by the way, it makes you think, right? I mean, Jim doesn't agree with me on certain of these points, but I gotta guarantee it, Jim has thought about it at least, and that's half the battle. He doesn't have to agree. I've thought about what he said as well. I've thought about what Lawrence has said as well. I take it under consideration, and I've even agreed. Lawrence, has good reasons for what he believes. Right? You don't have to be persuaded. You don't have to be convinced of something to accept somebody has a good argument. And it bugs
yeah.
me when somebody says your arguments suck, your arguments are bad, and then when you ask them why, they have no cogent reason to give. It makes anybody who does these kinds of discussions look foolish when you say something like that. I have a question. Okay, I hate frustrated atheists, by the way. 80 try says, "Do you
Going.
think what? Oh, now it's still going?
Yeah.
Have you done a show with Professor of Gender Studies yet? No. But 80 says, do you think that people strawman you on purpose or they don't understand? And is not understanding you really strawmanning? Yes.
Yes,
Well,
and yes.
yes, it's still strawmanning, whether it's intentional or not. Strawmanning is a fallacy. Fallacies don't require intent.
Right.
But do I think they do it on purpose? The vast majority of them, no. But some of them do. I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. I'm sure many people have seen it firsthand. People that just seemingly willfully go out of their way to strawman me, that because they have an agenda against me. But yes, that does happen. But the vast majority, no. Like, I don't think Matt's deliberately trying to strawman me. I honestly don't. But he is. Clearly, he is. Because I don't purport to claim what he says I've claimed. I've never said if you don't use prescriptive definitions or formal definitions or whatever, you're not an atheist, nor do I go around telling people how to define themselves. If they ask me, well, what would I be in philosophy? I will tell them. But I had somebody just the other day block me after said, Steve, Steve, you're so smug because you're going around telling atheists they're not atheists because they don't hold formal definitions. I'm like, can you give me a reference to this? Can you cite me anywhere? Can you show me a tweet? Do you know what I got out of that, Jim?
What's that?
You're blocked.
Real.
And that's frequent. It happens all the time. I got a collection of them. So.
Oh, there's people want an echo chamber, and whenever their beliefs are seriously challenged, they I honestly think it's a fear of accepting new information, or a fear of having to humble yourself before somebody who presents you with new information. It's
and what's worse is they go under Kyle. Like, Kyle gives it, it's like, what, Kyle is not in charge of my Twitter feed, people. If you got a problem with me, address it with me. Okay, going to Kyle is not going to solve anything. I guarantee it. Okay.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean, that's just petty. That's beyond petty, right? Why would you go to somebody that has completely have nothing to do with the discussion? Grow up.
Right. That's like somebody like messaging my mom. It's like
oh, they probably do that too. I don't know. Maybe I gotta go talk to my mom. But yeah, no. Here's the thing. I am not a big fan of cowards, and what I mean by that is, if you have a position, try to defend it. Look, I have never ran away from controversy, ever. So nobody can sit there that I can say that I do. There's certain people that I don't longer talk to this about after years of dealing with it. But if somebody has a legit concern, argument, gripe, whatever, I'm happy to listen. I always have been. This narrative that I'm not is just fucking stupid. Because anybody who's ever contacted me knows I have spent hours explaining things to people. I've spent hours addressing their concerns. And a lot of you people in my live chat know this because you've come to me. I wake up in the morning and you look at my Facebook and it's like a fucking sea of instant messages, or on GM or G Plus too. So I mean, I've inundated with people. Hey, Steve. I mean, one of the things that fostered this was somebody from on Facebook saying, Steve, I have a lot of people asking about this for my YouTube channel. Can you make it more concise? Sure. Yeah, I'll do that. Although I started to do it, but he still facilitated it. But all right. So, anyways, I'm going to end this. Thank you guys for watching this again. I hope this alleviates certain things. next we're going into a new year. I want to change the direction of things. I don't want to sit there and talk about agnosticism and atheism. I'd rather get into the sciences. I'm going to have experts come on and do more DEFCON 1 sciences, talk about math. It's going to be a whole, just like we're kind of changing the structure on New Sequitur, I'm changing the structure of this channel as well. I do every year, hopefully. And by the way, I like the Bible historicity stuff that you're talking about, Lawrence.
Bible historicity.
Whatever. you use your words, I'll use mine. Oh, there's my alarm for the show. So good night, guys. We'll see you later.
Bye.
That literally is my alarm. Guy.